Undead Mecha. Hey! Look who's back for more adventures. We love having you here to continue this story that keeps us all awake. Important note, all of this is pure fiction, so don't try any techniques you hear here in real life. Your neighbor might call the cops. This amazing novel and all its rights belong to the original author. We're just the ones giving it voice and drama. Are you enjoying the show? Prove it by subscribing to our YouTube channel and leaving that like that motivates us so much. And if you want VIP access to exclusive content, our Patreon is waiting with things you won't find anywhere else. Chapter 1, Traveling. 2150, Earth's technological advancement has reached its limit. Mechas have blanketed the planet like a swarm of locusts. From tiny mecha insects to giant mecha aircraft carriers, some people have even lived their entire lives without leaving their mecha cities. Mechas have become an inseparable part of humanity, working mecha engineers, guarding mecha warriors, swiftly moving mecha vehicles. Everything is inextricably linked to mechas. Almost everyone on Earth is a mecha expert. If someone can't independently build a mecha warrior by the age of 18, they don't deserve to live and will be looked down upon for the rest of their lives. Pollution has turned the Earth into a garbage dump. All mechas float in midair, covering everything from fields and rivers, naturally unburdened by the garbage below. A thin figure marches forward through the desolate mountains and forests. Surrounding him are a dozen mecha warriors, armed with submachine guns, ready to attack at any moment. His name is Ding-An Yuo, 26 years old. He's an ordinary civilian in this world, so ordinary that no one recognizes him. To be more precise, he was an orphan. He grew up in an orphanage and was expelled at the age of 16 to live on his own. Malnutrition left him pale and frail, his frail appearance making others wonder if he would live to see the next day. Despite his frail frame, he possessed a remarkable spirit, his gaze steady and resolute, that of a grown man. His obsession with mechas surpassed all others, and his talent surpassed even most geniuses. It was simply that no one appreciated him, and he didn't need it. His health was so poor because, ever since he could read, he had devoted all his energy to the study of mechas. Given enough materials, he could even build a mecha aircraft carrier. His presence here stemmed from deciphering an ancient text and discovering a 3,000-year-old civilization, said to be of extraordinary value. The dozen or so mecha soldiers around him were all multifunctional mecha warriors he had crafted. Even by today's standards, they were considered advanced, perfectly suited for combat support. Blow this place up. Ding-An Yuo carefully surveyed the surrounding terrain, pointing to a nearby depression. His command was unmistakable, as if it hadn't even come from his frail mouth. Crack, crack, crack. Several mech soldiers stepped forward, raised their right hands, and with a crackling sound, their palms transformed into cannons. Then, a ping-pong ball-sized energy ball shot out from within, striking the ground with a resounding boom. The ground shook, sending debris flying everywhere. One mech soldier's arm transformed into a shield, shielding Ding-An Yuo. The others attacked continuously for a minute, until a massive cavern appeared before him. Seeing the vast chasm before him, Ding-An Yuo smiled. With a wave of his hand, a dozen mech soldiers sprouted simple flying vehicles from their backs, grabbed Ding-An Yuo, and flew directly into the cavern. Entering the cave, Ding-An Yuo immediately caught a whiff of musty air. The next moment, several massive beams of light filled the cave, instantly brightening as if it were daytime. Ding-An Yuo remained calm, unfazed by any danger. He entered the cave step by step. In a matter of moments, he arrived at a cavern measuring 100 feet in circumference. This seemed to be the end of the cave, except for a series of strange carvings surrounding it. Above the carvings stood a massive fortress, suspended in midair. To its left stood the sun, to its right, and a sky filled with stars, as if from a distant alien presence. Ding-An Yuo paid no attention to these things. What caught his attention was the numerous mechas atop the massive fortress. Mecha warriors, mecha chariots, mecha warships, and even mecha aircraft carriers. Atop these mecha-like carvings were countless dense, strange lines, resembling stars or energy conveyor belts. Ding-An Yuo was completely captivated by the scene, completely absorbed in it. As time passed, he noticed that the mechas were actually moving. That's right, they were moving. As the lines glowed with a shimmering light, the mechas began to move. Instantly, the entire massive bunker seemed to come alive, transforming into a savage behemoth, emitting a terrifying aura. It was like a monster dormant for countless years, suddenly awakened. In that moment, Ding-An Yuo felt the powerful aura of the mechas. They seemed to come alive, instantly possessing the power to destroy the world. Alert, threat, activate autonomous attack mode. At that moment, all the mech warriors immediately sounded the alarm, and powerful beams of light were directed at the mech statue of the bunker. However, upon impact, the beams were completely absorbed by the mech. The lines then grew brighter, as if absorbing the beam's energy and restoring their own power. What Ding and Yuo didn't expect was that as the lines shimmered, a powerful suction suddenly emerged from the mech. He and all the mech warriors were sucked up without any resistance. Ding and Yuo's body instantly dried up and turned to ash, while the mech warriors fell to the ground like a pile of scrap metal. The statue of the mecha bunker flashed, and a warrior emerged from the cave. The original location instantly transformed, becoming an ordinary cave. It was as if nothing had happened. Ding and Yuo didn't know what was wrong with him. His mind was filled with a mess of lines. Although seemingly chaotic, they had a unique pattern that kept him captivated. He felt that those lines must be the key to the mecha. If he could master them, he could create even more powerful mechas. However, he had never seen those lines before, or even heard of them. And now, the most pressing problem seemed to be that he was dead. Yes, he was dead. He clearly remembered being sucked onto the mecha bunker by a terrifying suction force. In that instant, he felt his own death. He died so easily, without any special features. He was not surprised, nor did he feel the slightest bit of resentment. What puzzled him was why he was still conscious. Yes, he was still conscious. He clearly felt that his consciousness still existed and had not disappeared. Could it be that he was resentful because he hadn't figured out the lines? Or was he merely existing as a spirit? He didn't know the specific reason, but he knew his consciousness hadn't faded. Perhaps he could still survive. Slowly, he felt his mind begin to regain consciousness, and then he became aware of his surroundings. However, it was a chilling aura, familiar yet strange. Soon, he felt himself lying in bed, a large one covered in animal skins. The warmth was like warming himself by the fire in the orphanage. The feeling was so cozy that it made Ding and Yuo somewhat intoxicated. However, he quickly realized that he wasn't dead, but had been rescued. As consciousness slowly returned, Ding and Yuo clutched his head and screamed. A flood of information flooded his mind, and he convulsed, his limbs tensing. It took him a long time to react. Kenolite, the third son of the Light family in Xianlan City, was from the land of gods and demons. He was an elf, an orc, a dwarf, a human, a warrior, a magician, an assassin, and an archer. A chaotic stream of information flooded Ding and Yuo's mind, causing a headache that lasted for half a day. Only when he finally realized what was happening did he realize he had seemingly traveled through time. His soul had traveled through time, relocating to the body of Kenolite, the third son of the Wright family in Xianlan City. It seemed that Kenolite, the third son of the Wright family in Xianlan City, had been fighting with his cousin, and due to his physical weakness, he was killed by a single blow from his cousin, a level 3 swordsman. This single blow killed him because he was the weaker member of his family. He lacked the talent for swordsmanship. While he possessed a powerful magical talent and perfect elemental affinity, his mental strength was far too poor. According to the examiner, Kenolite's elemental affinity was a divine gift, but his mental strength was so poor it was barely at the level of an infant. If he practiced magic, even the simplest backlash would likely kill him. This situation instantly reduced Kenolite to a cripple, leaving him with nothing to do except hide in his dark room. But no matter what, Kenolite was the third young master of the Wright family. As a family of businessmen, the Wright family naturally wouldn't let this third young master go hungry. It's just that no one cared about him. What others didn't know was that this young master Kenolite never gave up on becoming stronger. Although he couldn't practice magic, he continued to research it, hoping to find a shortcut to become stronger and gain the recognition of his father and two brothers. The reason he left his small dark room and was beaten to death by his cousin that day was because he knew his magical properties. As long as he found meditation methods and spells, he could practice. However, he didn't expect that after rushing out in excitement, he accidentally bumped into his cousin who was sulking. As a result, the cousin didn't even look at him and just punched him to death. Seeing Kenolite's magical properties, he was helpless. It was a pity that Kenolite was so excited. This magical property was not something to be excited about. Chapter 2, The Necromancer. In the continent of gods and demons, magicians are a highly respected profession. Their numbers are extremely rare, barely 1 in 10,000. Furthermore, most magicians are junior, holding relatively low status. Magicians possess a limited number of attributes: light, dark, thunder and lightning, ice, wind, water, fire, and earth. The most revered are naturally light, thunder and lightning, ice and wind, while water, fire, and earth are less so. The continent of gods and demons also hosts a powerful organization, the Church of Light, which wields light magic. In contrast to the Temple of Light, the Temple of Darkness exists, whose members exclusively practice dark magic. They have been hostile to the Temple of Light for 1,000 years, undefeated. There is also the Temple of Ice and Snow, a place dedicated to the cultivation of ice magic. While its power is inferior to that of the Temple of Light, it's not far behind. While all magicians hold a high status, there's one exception, the dark-based necromancer. Because necromancers often work with the dead, collecting souls and digging up bones, they are universally opposed. Whether they were mages, warriors, or ordinary people, or even those from different factions or races, upon encountering an undead mage, they were unanimously killed. The training requirements for undead mage were demanding, and the skills were passed down from one lineage to another. Consequently, their numbers were extremely small, like rats crossing the street, universally condemned. However, their strength was undeniable. In single combat, undead mage were the strongest of their rank, even light mage, who could restrain them, were no match. However, undead magery required extremely high mental strength. Typically, undead mage apprentices possess 2 to 3 times the mental strength of ordinary magic apprentices. With such strength, it would be surprising if they were formidable. Unfortunately, Kenolite possessed the undead element, and could only be an undead mage. If this were known, he would likely perish again soon. Now that his body belonged to Ding and Yuo, he naturally changed his name to Kenolite. Few people knew his former name, and it was unwise to use one's own name when possessing someone else. Upon absorbing the other's body, he naturally also inherited their magical talents. Although Kenolite's mental strength had once been extremely poor, now that he was 25, things should have changed. Kenolite naturally wouldn't miss the opportunity to cultivate another supernatural power. However, what he truly desired to revive was, of course, the mecha. While those magical fighting spirits were indeed powerful, with a mecha carrier, everything would be a breeze. He compared them to a magician's strength, not a submachine gun, a wizard's strength, not a quantum cannon, a sorcerer's strength, not a quantum cannon, and the so-called holy level forbidden spells, not a nuclear weapon, all of which he could create given the time. However, cultivating magic would strengthen his body and mental strength. More importantly, it would increase his lifespan. He remembered that if he reached the holy level, he could even live to 500 years old. 500 years, what a concept. Even if he built his own mecha carrier, he could still build one. However, the next 2 major problems presented themselves, and they had brought his progress to a bottleneck. Without a breakthrough, all his plans were empty. First, he lacked the methods to cultivate necromancers. Necromancers were originally a single lineage, and their numbers were extremely rare. Aside from fragments of these methods found in ancient ruins, there were no other avenues to find them. Given Kenolite's current situation, even if he had a 500-year lifespan, finding a necromancer wouldn't be easy. He was completely powerless, given his current abilities. Another challenge was the mecha programming, components, wiring connections, and so on. While these weren't complex for him, without computers and the internet, he could only create the most basic mecha warriors. Creating intelligent mecha warriors was a definite no-go. Kenolite was confident he could overcome these 2 major challenges, but it would take time and opportunity. Right now, his priority was his own safety. His body was too weak and needed strengthening. He hadn't had the time or the ability before, but now that wasn't a problem. He also had to quickly build a mecha warrior to ensure his own safety. He didn't want any random person to be able to destroy him one day. Heaven had given him a chance to live again, so he would naturally seize it. Furthermore, he felt the patterns in the cave resembled a formation, perhaps magic and mechas were related. After lying in his room all day, Kenolite felt a pang of resentment. He was a young master after all, so why was there no one to serve him? It seemed Kenolite wasn't treated well in the right family. Without even a maid, was he still a young master? In his memory, the hierarchy of the divine and demon continent was extremely strict. Not only could masters beat and scold servants at will, but even if they were killed, the only compensation they received was a dozen gold coins. As for the slaves of lower ranks, that was out of the question. Even if they were all killed, no one would say anything. The people here were even colder than those on Earth. "Someone, I'm hungry." Having received everything from Kenolite, speaking was no problem. Though a little unfamiliar, he could still speak. There were hurried footsteps, belonging to a middle-aged butler. His blonde hair and blue eyes made Kenolite feel uneasy. He wasn't particularly fond of foreigners. But he soon realized he was a foreigner, too, a feeling that left him feeling helpless. "Master Keno, you're awake. It's truly the god of light's protection. I'll go inform the head of the family, he'll surely be delighted. Wait, steward Krama, get me something to eat. I don't want to starve to death here before my father arrives." "Master Keno, wait a moment. Delicious food will be served soon," Krama said flatteringly, then immediately turned and left. Kenolite could see a hint of irritation in steward Krama's back. Though it felt strange, he trusted his instincts, they were forged through countless battles. It seemed this family wasn't as simple as he'd imagined. His adopted father probably didn't want to be a burden. Kenolite couldn't help but smile. For as long as he could remember, he'd relied on himself for everything. He hadn't even had time to think about his parents. And now, this adopted father was Kenolite's, a father who didn't even care about his own son's life or death. In a matter of moments, a maid brought a glass of milk and some snacks. Kenolite didn't care about anything else and immediately devoured them. Eating was never a problem for him. The maid watched Kenolite devour his food, suppressing a smile. Sensing Kenolite's gaze, she immediately lowered her head and quieted down. "What's your name, Master Keno?" "My name is Nish, the second madam's maid." "Oh, the second madam's maid?" Nish was clever enough to immediately reveal her identity as the second madam. Naturally, she was afraid Kenolite would make her a maid, and she doubted the second madam would have any objections. Kenolite, however, had no feelings for her at all. He was simply looking for an excuse to ask about something else. "Nice, I'm the third young master, but it seems like this shouldn't be the case, Master Keno. According to family rules, you were entitled to a monthly stipend of 100 gold coins, 2 guards, and 4 maids. However, these were taken away from you at the age of 15. You'll have to ask the head of the family for the specific reason. He only just remembered that it was taken away from him at the age of 15. The real reason was the second madam's manipulation. As for his own gold, he had used it all on his magic research. A little over 1,000 gold coins might seem like a lot, but with the salaries of the guards and maids, and the need for magic research, it wasn't much. For a moment, Keno was at a loss for words. Keno had been truly naive before, completely lacking the social etiquette. Aside from the elders who paid him the monthly stipend, no one in the entire Wright family probably even knew him. However, he needed gold coins, and a lot of them, to build his own mecha. So, he had to find a way to get it from the second madam. As for his adopted father, he didn't care about his life or death. Keno wasn't interested in approaching him. A faint sound of footsteps reached Kenolite's ears. He felt his perception grow stronger, at least enough to tell the person outside was a woman. She must have been the second madam, coming at this moment. It seemed she had complete control over his affairs. "Keno, my child, you've suffered so much? Look at how frail you are. How could you not even withstand a casual punch from little Alex?" Hearing that name, Kenolite almost vomited. His cousin, Alex, was already 19 years old, and still called him little Alex. But upon closer inspection, it seemed the second madam and Alex's mother were from the same family. The second madam's politeness to him likely meant she didn't want to exaggerate the matter. After all, Kenolite was, the third son of the Wright family, a position of authority. While his cousin, was only a side branch, it was a serious offense for a side branch to attack the main branch. If that were the case, he could blackmail her. He was desperate for gold, after all. Without even the means to protect himself, that would be disastrous. He is not one of those people who would allow his life to be taken by others. Chapter 3, Blackmail. Besides, the Wright family, a merchant family, is the wealthiest in Cheyenne City. Even the idle young masters receive a monthly stipend of 100 gold coins, let alone the second madam. The second madam looked closely at Kenolite and immediately sensed something was amiss. Kenolite looked strange now, his eyes brimming with cunning. Kenolite had been a classic nerd, spending his days hiding in a dark room with nothing else to do. She knew Kenolite was studying magic, but if magic were truly that easy, it wouldn't be mastered by only 1 in 10,000 people. Second madam, to be honest, I don't blame Cousin Ollie. After all, I was the one who accidentally provoked him. I'll explain to father that cousin Ali isn't to blame. No, your father is very busy. Don't bother him with such a small matter. The second madam's eyes flickered with surprise. She hadn't expected Kenolite to be so easy to talk to. She hadn't even begun, and yet he'd surrendered. But at this moment, she had a feeling that Kenolite didn't deserve this. Perhaps he had in the past, but not now. Second madam, cousin Ali accidentally hit me this time, and he must be very upset. I want to buy him something. Is that okay with you? As soon as these words left her mouth, even the second madam couldn't shake it. What was going on? Apologizing after being hit? Did Kenolite have a brain injury? If she agreed, even she felt sorry for him. If she disagreed, this situation wouldn't work. Well, since you're so kind, I'll buy it. No, second madam, I have to buy it. And it can't be just any ordinary thing, otherwise, it wouldn't show my sincerity. But what? But I don't have any gold coins. What shall I do, without gold coins? This was clear extortion. Only then did she realize that Kenolite had gone through so much trouble just to ask her for money. As for what he would buy, she didn't have to guess. She figured, just being able to buy something would be a blessing. But she really couldn't afford to offend Kenolite right now. What if he reported her to the head of the family? That would be a serious matter and a significant threat to her. How about this? I'll give you 200 gold coins, 2 million gold coins, that's a lot. Second lady, that's unacceptable. I don't mind just giving you a few tens of thousands of gold coins. The second lady shuddered at these words. 2 million, she'd said 200 gold coins, how did it become 2 million? Kenolite was trying to trick her, but he had also stated the amount. Tens of thousands of gold coins were no small sum for her either. Judging from his expression, she probably couldn't refuse. If something unexpected happened, it would be really troublesome. Furthermore, if she suppressed this matter, she could also benefit from her sister, maybe even double it. Kano, second mother really doesn't have much money. How about giving you 2,000 gold coins first to make do with, and then giving you more once second mother gets her monthly allowance? 200,000 gold coins is too much? Father will have to decide that later. Just give me 30 or 50,000, and we won't bother father. Giving him 30 or 50,000, and not bothering father, that wasn't a threat, and she had no problem with it. But 30 or 50,000 wasn't a small sum for her either. She wouldn't just give it away because of a word from Kenolite. Kano, you should know second mother doesn't have much money either. Every maiden servant in this mansion needs money. We recently hired a swordsman to help the family, and he gave second mother 20,000 gold coins. Swordsmen are a mid-level warrior. Their numbers are few, and their strength is comparable to that of mages. While their value is much lower than that of mages, their power is undeniable after they have mastered Dao-Ki. Throughout Xianlan City, there are only a dozen or so masters of the Grand Swordsman level, and even more are sword masters. They're sought after by the major families, and even if they weren't, no one would consider offending them. As for swordsmen, they're quite ordinary. Junior swordsmen are everywhere, and families only employ mid-level swordsmen as servants. For example, the Wright family's guards are all senior swordsmen, and the collateral descendants are protected by top-tier swordsmen. 20,000 gold coins? That's a lot of money. Second lady has a lot of private money. No, second lady doesn't have that much. Part of it is provided by the family. Second lady doesn't want to cry poor to you. 5,000 gold coins? That's the limit. Second lady gritted her teeth and offered her final bid, 5,000 gold coins. For an ordinary person who could use a gold coin for a year, 5,000 gold coins was a huge sum. But after all, she was the young master of the Wright family, and she had almost been beaten to death. 5,000 gold coins really didn't mean much. Second lady, look, I didn't get any monthly pay last year. 200 gold coins a month, I'm 2,000 short. The second lady's mouth twitched. It was supposed to be 100 gold coins a month. How could it be 200? But she quickly realized that Kano was blackmailing her. If she refused, she'd be in trouble. Okay, add another 2,000 gold coins. Second lady, my health is so poor. I'll probably need a lot of supplements. If I have any after effects, wouldn't that cause trouble for cousin Ali? Don't say it. 10,000 gold coins. You should be satisfied with that price. The second lady gritted her teeth, her face etched with rage. She had unknowingly fallen into Kano's trap, feeling humiliated. But this time, The fault was hers, she had no choice but to accept it. Next time, if she had the chance, she would make Kenner take as much as she could. Second mother, 10,000 gold coins is too much to hold. Would you mind giving me a magic crystal card? A magic crystal card is the equivalent of Earth's bank cards. Because the amount of gold coins is so high, they're stored on a magic crystal card. However, the minimum balance required to use a magic crystal card is 10,000. It's also a symbol of status. 10,000 gold coins is no small sum. Kenolite is currently unarmed, he can't even carry them, let alone buy anything. The 10,000 gold coins he wants sounds like a lot, but the items he needs to buy are cheap. In this world, forging is monopolized by the dwarves, and the prices are exorbitant. Even 1,000 gold coins wouldn't be enough for a mech suit, not to mention a necessity he needs. A space ring is a storage item exclusively for magicians. Because it can only be crafted by space mages, it's ridiculously expensive. The lowest grade space ring is only a cubic size and can't recognize an owner, meaning any magician can open it. Even so, the price has reached 5,000 gold coins. This is even in the current era of advanced magical civilization. In the past, space rings were a symbol of status, not something a magician could easily possess. In the past, even the head of the right family, for example, would have been considered fortunate to have a space ring. Now, the Wright family possesses at least a dozen space rings, as the Wright family's recruitment requirement is to present a space ring to a magician. Meanwhile, the Kate family possesses one high-level magician and 7 or 8 mid to low-level magicians. As for mage, there is only one in the entire Cheyenne City. This is because the Morin Kingdom, to which Cheyenne City belongs, is only a kingdom, and the power gap with the other empires is vast. Each of these empires is ruled by saint-level masters. It simply cannot be compared with the top 4, the Light Empire, the Magic Empire, the Sword God Empire, and the Ice and Snow Empire. If it weren't for Morin's central location within these empires and its membership in the United Kingdom, it would have been annexed long ago. Magic crystal card, okay. I'll give you another one. But it won't be of much use to you. Can you give it to me after you run out of gold coins? Don't worry, second lady. I'll definitely give it to you after I use it up. I think there's no time to lose. Please have the magic crystal card delivered quickly. Cousin Yali's gift needs to be delivered soon, don't worry. Second lady said she'd give it to you, and she won't refuse. Otherwise, my role as an elder wouldn't be in vain. Second lady had fully regained her wits and, in a matter of moments, a magic crystal card was delivered to Kenolite. Though he appeared excited, a chill ran deep inside. He had just checked around, but no one was around. Second lady had simply promised him that a magic crystal card would be delivered soon. This meant that second lady had a hidden expert around her, either a swordsman or a magician. Not long after second lady left, Kenolite left the Wright family. Now, he needed to improve his skills as quickly as possible, even if it meant acquiring a few sniper rifles. This world is too dangerous, and swordsmen, magicians, and the like are too mysterious. Although he has a talent for learning necromancy, finding the method to practice it requires opportunity. Rashly seeking it will only lead to his own death. Just as Kenolite left the family, the head of the Wright family sat in a chair in the family study, looking thoughtful. Rumors of his ability as a high-level swordsman, coupled with his status as the head of the Wright family, gave him a unique aura of intimidation just by sitting there. After 16 years of silence, he finally took action. It's a pity he kept himself locked away for so long, not realizing that there are people who cannot be offended. Kenolite's blackmail of the second wife was considered a risky move by the head of the family. He knew his second wife's character well, and he would never let Kenolite off easily. Forget it, he's still young. He'll grow up slowly if he suffers a little. After all, one day he'll leave the family, and the family won't keep useless people. Send someone to protect him secretly. He's my son after all. If he suddenly died for no apparent reason, I'd be very embarrassed. As for what he wants to do, find out for me. I'm also curious. What has he figured out in these 16 years? I've provided him with a lot of conveniences. Chapter 4, Bye. Kenolite had no idea that his adoptive father knew his every move. If he knew, he'd be baffled. How could he be so easily beaten to death by his cousin, Ali, when he had bodyguards? After all, he had never been part of a prominent family, so these things weren't familiar to him. But even if he knew, it wouldn't change much. He was always cautious and wary of others. The Wright family mansion was located in the busiest part of Cheyenne City. Although Kenolite didn't go out often, he knew where the shop selling space rings was. The Cheyenne Auction House, the largest business in Cheyenne City, was directly under the kingdom's Minister of Finance. The items there were undoubtedly the finest and most expensive. Few people came here to buy, but they were all members of Cheyenne City's prominent families. Spending thousands of gold coins there was perfectly normal. At this moment, the Cheyenne Auction House was a bit deserted, almost deserted. The place was bustling only during auctions. With only a few nobles, it wasn't like they'd just come and buy things whenever they had nothing to do. Compared to the nobles, Kenolite's attire was quite unusual. He might be a commoner, but the material of his clothes was exquisite. But if you were a noble, he barely possessed a single decent accessory besides his clothes. So, when he entered the Cheyenne Auction House, the maids at the door were stunned. If they stopped the young man, what if he was wealthy? If they didn't, they feared a reprimand. They knew many of the city's nobles, both large and small, but they had never seen the young man before them. However, from his expression, he didn't seem worldly wise. "I want to buy a space ring." Seeing the two maids at the door hesitate, Kenolite knew what they meant. But he didn't want to embarrass them. Even going out for a meal wasn't easy. Kenolite's words brought smiles to the maids' faces. Buying a space ring would cost at least 5,000 gold coins each. This deal was definitely profitable. And those who bought space rings were generally magicians. It was just that Kenolite didn't look like one. "My apologies, young master. Please forgive my inattention. Please follow me. I'm not sure what kind of interspatial ring you'd like. We have two types, one for 5,000 gold coins, 1 cubic meter of space, and it can't be owned. The other for 10,000 gold coins, 1 cubic meter, and it can be owned." The maid said this, naturally testing Kenolite's wealth. If he hadn't, his expression would have changed. Kenolite remained calm after hearing the maid's words. He already knew all this, but he hadn't expected that Cheyenne City's interspatial rings were only 1 cubic meter. However, he only had 10,000 gold coins and needed to buy other things, so naturally, he could only buy the 5,000 gold ring, which couldn't be owned. "Give me the 5,000 gold ring. Are you a magician?" No, Kenolite said nothing, and the maid wisely didn't ask any further questions. Soon, the interspatial ring appeared before Kenolite, which delighted him. After all, even on Earth in the year 2150, there were no such things as space rings. They existed only in legend. Wearing the space ring, Kenolite's spiritual power easily entered it. Any magician could use a space ring. This was common sense, even if his spiritual power was extremely low. "Ah, isn't this Master Kenolite? Why are you here to buy a space ring? How long will you have to save up for it? I guess you won't have any gold coins left after buying one. Tell me what you want to buy, and I'll pay." An arrogant voice came from a man and a woman. Both were 15 or 16 years old, but their faces were full of dignity. It was obvious that they were both scion of prominent families. What puzzled him was that he seemed to have no connection with them. Even if the man wanted to show off, he couldn't insult him like this. Besides, was he that easy to bully? "Do you have that many gold coins?" "I need to buy a lot of things. Do you have that many gold coins?" This question sounded like the ultimate insult, especially in front of the distinguished young woman beside him. It was even more discriminatory. The man's face was filled with rage. He casually pulled out a magic crystal card, threw it on the table, and shouted with a dignified air, "Whatever you buy today, I'll pay for it. I, Andicris, am no match for a worthless young master like you. But please be mindful of your status and avoid using those despicable provocations. It will make Lanyard look down on you." Andicris was the eldest son of the Chris family. Kenolite knew him. After all, they were rival families, so he had to get to know him. He didn't know Lanyard, though judging by her status, she must be of a similar rank. He just didn't know who she was or what her purpose was. He also felt that there was something strange about the way Lanyard looked at him. There was a hint of disappointment in her eyes, which puzzled him. He had no memory of ever meeting her, nor had he ever been in a relationship with her. So what was the disappointment? But Kenolite didn't dwell on it. Instead, she looked at the maid and said seriously, "You heard him. He said he'd pay." A maid wouldn't dare interfere in the internal strife between noble young masters. A single word could make her miserable. "Don't worry, I'm paying voluntarily. Don't you trust my credibility? I'm a noble, And I don't disdain such despicable things, Andicrus spoke, his tone filled with pride and indifference. He was speaking the truth. If he broke his word here, he would offend the Morin Kingdom's Minister of Finance. Brother, you're so generous. I'll be polite then, brother, you can take anything you want, then I'll buy it. A cough from Kenolite gave Andicrus a bad feeling. He wasn't really asking for too much, was he? Things here weren't cheap. But now that he had asked, and he had other plans, he couldn't go back on his word. I've already bought this unrecognizable interspatial ring, so I can't return it. It would be so embarrassing. But it's not worthy of my status. I'd like to find another one that recognizes its owner. Okay, Andicrus smiled casually. 2 interspatial rings were only 15,000 gold coins. For him, that was within his means. If Kenolite only wanted that, he'd be getting a bargain. Do you have any magic metals? Restorative or powerful defensive ones? Sorry, magic metals are exclusive to the Magician's Guild. We don't have any. Sensing Andicrus's cold gaze, the maid immediately changed her tune. After all, they didn't have much magic metal, and she didn't want to offend Andicrus. She knew how aristocrats acted. If you don't have magic metals, then you must have magic cores. Right, that's right. We're the largest magic core dealer in Cheyenne City. We have everything from level 4 to level 6, our big brother Andicrus isn't short of money. I'll take all the magic cores you have, all of them. Andicrus's face paled almost instantly, and he shuddered. To the uninitiated, they might have been a fit. I heard you're out of stock lately. It seems you only have a few magic cores. We'll take those. Go get them. Lanya, standing next to him, spoke calmly. Andicrus breathed a sigh of relief. He really couldn't say that, but Lanya could. A few magic cores, that's enough. Do you have any magic wands? I want something better. Cough. Andicrus coughed violently. He completely regretted his decision. This Kenolite was asking for too much. The value of what he wanted was simply too high. A magic wand is no ordinary magic item. It costs at least 10,000 gold coins, not to mention the Cheyenne auction house, a sycophantic place. Forget it, Kenolite, don't you think you're being too much? I think 2 space rings and a few magic cores are more than enough to live up to your calling me big brother. Since the beautiful lady has spoken, I won't linger any longer. I'll take the magic core and space ring. See you next time. Kenolite smiled widely as he put the magic cores into the space ring. He then put the 2 space rings on his hands and turned to leave. He hadn't paid a cent, but he'd bought something worth nearly 30,000 gold coins. Although he knew it might be a trap, he didn't care. Thank you, big brother, Kenolite turned around and said affectionately, a look that almost made Andicrus want to vomit blood. After Kenolite left, he received the magic crystal card that had cost him 30,000 gold coins. Although his heart bled, he felt his efforts were worth it. At least Lanya had seen it all. Lanya must have lost faith in Kenolite by now. By then, Andicrus didn't notice the strange glint in Lanya's eyes, but when she looked back at Andicrus, her gaze was more indifferent. Perhaps Andicrus thought he had succeeded, but in reality, he hadn't. In Lanya's eyes, he was still just an ordinary person. Dear Miss Lanya, is there anything you need to buy? Just ask, and I'll do it. No need. We in the Robert family have strict discipline. If you take someone else's things without permission, you will be punished. Dear Miss Lanya, please forgive my impudence. It's all right, Your Excellency Andicrus. I think I should go back. It's on my way. I'll give you a ride. Chapter 5, Master Keri. After leaving the Cheyenne auction house, Kenolite quickly arrived at Weapon Street. It looked like a rundown slum, but this single street, less than 100 feet long, held 1/10 of Cheyenne City's wealth. The most abundant thing in the continent of gods and demons was undoubtedly warriors, and their weapons and armor were undoubtedly a significant sales force. Take Cheyenne City, for example. While its population was 1 million, at least 400,000 of them were warriors. Their weapons and armor were far more valuable than a mere gold coin. Furthermore, the blacksmiths on this street were all dwarven masters. The weapons and armor they crafted were of unparalleled quality and price, yet even so, they sometimes ran out of stock. In the continent of gods and demons, the dwarves had the closest relationship with humans. This wasn't because humans were inherently kind, but rather because they greatly desired the dwarven forging talent. While humans had their own share of weapon masters, they were vastly inferior to dwarven blacksmiths. This wasn't a lack of effort, but rather a difference in talent. Dwarves have been blacksmiths for generations, and their lifespans can reach up to 200 years. Almost as soon as they reach adulthood, they're as skilled as swordsmen. If their numbers weren't so small, they could easily dominate a region. Kenolite wasn't in a rush to enter a smithy, he needed to pick up his goods immediately. So, he needed to rent a smithy and slowly find someone to forge them. At any rate, he needed to get a few low-level mech warriors ready. As he wandered to the street, a loud snoring erupted, so loud that even the most deaf could hear it. Passers-by seemed accustomed to it, showing no sign of surprise. Some even hurriedly moved aside, as if fearing to provoke the slumbering figure within. Opening a shop here, and sleeping so soundly, it was obvious he was a dwarf. Furthermore, this dwarf was likely a master, though he certainly had some special requirements. Dwarves are fond of alcohol and extremely stubborn, making their decisions nearly impossible to reverse. But Kenolite didn't care, he didn't count on the dwarves. As he walked into the shop, he was hit by a strong smell of alcohol. Kenolite frowned immediately, as the strong smell almost made him faint. The entire blacksmith shop was filled with nothing but a furnace, a pile of coal and iron blocks. There was a pile of wine bottles on the ground, and not even a bench to sit on. Beside the furnace, a bearded dwarf, about half a meter tall, was snoring while holding his hammer. He held an empty wine bottle in one hand, and saliva kept flowing from his mouth. Kenolite was still very curious when he saw a dwarf for the first time. Dwarves are generally less than half a meter tall, but their beards are 3 feet long. It is said that after a dwarf turns 150, his beard will drag on the ground, which sounds very funny. The prices for making weapons here are very high. A weapon costs at least 200 gold coins. And if you use it, you won't be able to lift it at all. The dwarf didn't even raise his head, but spoke very soberly. This piqued Kenolite's interest, and he said calmly, "What I want to make is not armor or weapons, but some small parts. As long as the quality of what you make is good, the price will not be a problem." Quality, you are provoking the dwarf. Keno had almost finished speaking when the dwarf immediately stood up, grabbed Keno, and roared. Feeling a heavier smell of alcohol rushing towards him, Keno's face turned pale, and he finally couldn't help vomiting. "You rude, slovenly fellow, I wouldn't be working for you if I hadn't had any business. The tools are over there. Draw the parts you want. You have plenty of time. Once you're done, negotiate the price, pay, and you can pick up your stuff in a moment. Oh, by the way, my name is Keri. You can call me Master Keri." After vomiting 2 or 3 times in a row, Keno was practically exhausted. His body was in such poor condition. He needed a serious overhaul when he got back. Fortunately, in the Mecha age, there were specialized training methods. While he couldn't reach the level of a swordsman, being as light as a swallow and lifting 100 pounds with a single hand was no problem. He walked over to the pile of tools and wiped off the dust. In just a few moments, Keno had drawn all the parts for a Mecha warrior. For someone who had spent years researching and building Mecha warriors, this was a piece of cake. He wasn't worried about the parts being stolen because he was the only one in the world who knew the core technology. Even if someone else got the blueprints, they would still be nothing more than a pile of scrap metal. Keri's brows knitted together at the sight of the vast pile of blueprints. Honestly, he'd never seen so many parts before. From the individual parts alone, it was impossible to tell what would eventually be assembled, yet, this level of complexity was undoubtedly the most complex he'd ever seen. "Yes, this is a challenge. Explain it all to me, and then we can discuss the gold." "No problem. I'll first explain the sizes of the parts, and then we'll discuss the specific requirements. But I'm sure Master Keri won't disappoint." Keno spent a long time explaining all the sizes and requirements, and Master Keri remained incredibly serious throughout. When he finished, he was completely stunned. "Boy, how do you know so much? What are these things for? Are you making some special puppets?" Puppetry is a large war puppet used in combat, but it's extremely difficult to create, and most of it is made of magical materials. Kenolite, however, has only used ordinary iron. "Master Keri, you're not sure you can build what I want? What a joke. You're insulting me. Although these things are a little weird, I can build them all in just 4 days. 4 days, sounds good. How much are these in total? You know 4 days doesn't take much effort. You're not asking for an exorbitant price, are you? 4 days, 1,000 gold a day, 4,000 gold total, not expensive, but I want 4 sets. How about 10,000 gold, 4 sets? You're trying to tire me out. These things aren't big, but they're definitely not any less sophisticated. 10,000 gold coins won't give you more than 3 sets. No more price reduction. Master Keri shook his head repeatedly, leaving Kenolite feeling frustrated. His set of parts included bullet-making tools. To save materials, the mech had only 4 blaster rifles, each firing 4 blaster rounds. Exploders combine the strengths of both brute force and sniper rifles, with a long range and powerful explosion. He had originally wanted to create a dedicated Gatling gun and sniper rifle, but was forced to combine them due to material constraints. Unexpectedly, after searching through thousands of provinces, he still couldn't muster 4 mecha warriors. Fortunately, he had Antichrist, otherwise he would only have been able to build 1 mecha. He now had to consider whether to sell off the magic cores and the unclaimed interstellar rings, otherwise, he wouldn't have the funds to make bullets. Don't even think about it, kid. Unless you tell me what these things are, I won't help you make more. Even if you bring more gold coins in the future, it won't matter. Also, I have a message for you. There's a guy out there who hasn't left yet. If I'm not mistaken, he's here to find you. Kenolite's face suddenly changed after hearing Keri's words. Who had come to him at this time? The second wife, his cousin Alex, Antichrist. Only then did he realize how many people he had unknowingly offended. He didn't think they were just looking for a chat. The guy hadn't come because Master Keri was here. All the adult dwarves were at the level of swordsmen, and they easily outclassed even the junior human swordsmen. Although the dwarves are few in number among the human race, they have extensive networks and strong cohesion. Therefore, even the Empire wouldn't easily offend them. Even the Church of Light, which labeled other races heretics, is very friendly to the dwarves. However, the mecha is his secret, and sharing it with others would be a disaster. What if someone were to strangle him in the cradle? Boy, I'm just curious. If you don't tell me, forget it, Master Keri, you misunderstood. Actually, these are goblin blueprints I obtained. They contain puppet-making diagrams from the goblin ancestors. I don't know if they can even be recreated. Kenolite pondered for a moment and decided to deceive Keri. The goblin ancestors he was referring to were powerful beings in history, who crafted many extremely advanced weapons and once dominated the entire god and demon continent. However, the goblins were too weak, and without their weapons, they were nothing. Later, they were exterminated by the combined forces of other races, and now they are just a few bandit tribes that can't even speak clearly. Despite their utter defeat, their civilization remained undeniable. Any goblin-crafted blueprint was now invaluable. Seriously? This is something from a goblin-crafted blueprint. My goodness. I'm actually going to restore the civilization of the goblin ancestors. Don't worry, leave the crafting to me. I'll build 4 sets for you as quickly as possible, but I won't give you a penny less than 10,000 gold coins. Master Keri was clearly excited. He gulped down his wine and immediately took up his hammer, forging the pieces. He looked as if he wanted to work all night. Kenolite was naturally delighted to have the mech warrior finished sooner, but his priority now was to prepare the materials for the ammunition. Otherwise, a mech warrior without ammunition would be useless. To save materials, the mech warrior had a blaster in its right hand and a spiked shield in its left. This allowed for both defense and attack. If it ran out of ammunition, the spiked shield could still pierce the enemy with a single thrust. Chapter 6, Blaster. For any mechsmith, crafting bullets is a simple matter. Given enough materials, Kenolite could even create small, primitive bullets. The blaster had only a few parts. It was just a simple, brute force weapon. Aside from its exceptional strength, it was unremarkable. Kenolite had, admittedly, underestimated the dwarven craftsmanship. Even high-tech products presented no real challenge to the dwarves. A 1 or 2 inch part could be hammered out in just a few dozen strokes with that massive 2-foot hammer. The technical challenges were undeniable. Kenolite had initially thought seamless steel pipes would be the most challenging, but the dwarf's methods astounded him. They simply hammered a large piece of iron for a long time, then placed an iron rod around it, rolled it, and then pounded it again. While Master Keri's hammering was certainly swift, Kenolite could tell it was a forging technique. Once a pipe was forged, it remained seamless, as if cast from molten iron. Kenolite was truly enlightened. The dwarven forging technique was truly a millennium-old tradition. No wonder humans couldn't replicate it. It required both talent and dedication. Sensing the uniqueness of the forging method, Kenolite stared intently. Kenolite's unbridled gaze couldn't escape Keri's gaze, but Keri paid no heed. Each component, seemingly molded from clay, emerged from Master Keri's hammer at such a speed that Kenolite wondered if Master Keri's hammer was a magical weapon. Boy, forget it. Our dwarven forging methods are not something you can easily grasp. They're a legacy passed down for tens of thousands of years and a natural gift of our race. If they were so easily learned, you clever humans would have mastered our methods long ago. But you know, the so-called forging masters of your race today are only as good as our adult dwarves. Even the true forging masters are only slightly better than me, and there are only a handful of them. Keri's words were simple. Humans couldn't learn the dwarven talents. Some of them were probably secrets that dwarves kept secret. Otherwise, the dwarven forging methods wouldn't be so different. But Keri probably had other motives for telling me this. Could it be that he knew these mech warriors were missing a key and wanted to trade them? His brow furrowed, but Keri looked relaxed. He casually glanced at Kenner and said with a smile, "All these puppet parts of yours are unimportant, right? Without a power source, everything is useless. I'm just curious, what's your power source? Is it a magic core? If I told you I don't have one, would you believe me?" Master Keri paused, then turned to Kenner. He had a feeling that Kenner might not know the power source. Their eyes met, and they remained silent for half an hour. However, the gold coins had just been exchanged, so Kenolite couldn't be playing him. "Boy, without a power source, everything you craft will be useless. Don't you know how to research a power source yourself? Are you a magician? If you're not, you can't research a power source. In this world, hard work doesn't represent talent, Master Keri, I understand. But what you need to do is craft these things. Excuse me, do you have a whetstone? I need to sharpen these parts. The whetstone is in the corner, go get it." Master Keri looked at Kenolite with a puzzled expression. 10,000 gold coins was no small sum. To squander them so freely, Kenolite was gambled everything. But Kenolite gave him a special feeling. He felt the young man before him seemed confident. It was just that after all these years, he had never seen or even heard of these parts before. Kenolite paid no attention to Master Keri's words. Instead, he took the parts and began to polish them carefully. His seriousness made Master Keri look strange. His face was gloomy, and he continued to craft his own parts. His crafting was seamless. After glancing at the blueprints once, he had no desire to continue. Such a memory amazed Kenolite. Unbeknownst to him, he also possessed a photographic memory. A magician's mental power was unmatched by ordinary humans. While Master Keri's parts were somewhat crude, they were nearly perfect. Kenolite achieved perfection with a simple polish. A simple test of the parts revealed they were significantly better than those he had previously machine forged. This astonished him greatly. He might need to win over the dwarves to build a mecha carrier. His brewing skills weren't great, and he had no better way to deal with his stubborn temper. 10 days, 2 days ahead of schedule. By the time all the parts were finished, Kenolite's bullets were also ready. With the bullet-making tools, he could easily mass-produce them independently. Of course, the technology behind these bullets wasn't entirely mature. Their power hadn't decreased much, but their range was only 1,000 meters, significantly less than the 5,000 meters he'd anticipated. To prevent anyone from stealing the gunpowder, Kenolite had deliberately tampered with it. The moment the bullet was opened, it would explode instantly. Gunpowder was too dangerous, and he couldn't bring it to another world. If they developed nuclear weapons, he'd be a sinner in this world. Destructive weapons like nuclear weapons were more reliable in our own hands. Watching Kenolite holding the oval iron eggs, each about the thickness of a thumb, Master Keri was puzzled. Now that Kenolite had polished all the parts, he could see the final result. "Thank you, Master Keri. I'll take the items. If I have time, I hope to work with you again." Kenolite had no intention of assembling the mech at this moment. He controlled his space ring and, with a casual wave of his hand, collected all the mech's parts. He then turned and was about to leave, which caused a flicker of irritation in Master Keri's eyes. However, he didn't lose his temper immediately. Instead, he put down the hammer and spoke calmly, "Human boy, you've successfully piqued my curiosity. I want to know what those parts of yours are used for. In exchange, I can give you our dwarven 9-pole hammer. The 9-pole hammer is a secret of our dwarven race. Learning it not only strengthens the body but also unleashes terrifying offensive power. With a 9-level hammer, the attack power of each strike doubles. If you can master the 9 hammers, even a saint-level cultivator can kill with a single strike. You must know that even among dwarves, The 9-pole hammer isn't something you can learn casually. Even most dwarves haven't heard of it. Master Keri spoke with a smug look on his face. If nothing else, the fact that it could kill a saint-level cultivator speaks volumes about the 9-pole hammer's power. Such a secret technique would require exceptional training, but anyone who heard of it would be tempted to resist. Master Keri, how many hammer strikes can you throw now? 3. One strike can easily kill a swordsman-level expert. Master Keri, what's your strength? Equivalent to a high-level swordsman of your race. A high-level swordsman, using a secret technique, can kill a junior swordsman with a single hammer strike. I don't think that's anything to brag about. Not only was it nothing to brag about, but it was absolutely useless. He figured it was easy for a high-level swordsman to defeat a low-level swordsman. Besides, even if the attack was so powerful, it still had to be able to hit. A swordsman's fighting spirit wasn't just about weapon power. And since it was a secret technique, practicing it would surely be difficult. He also needed to research mechas, and he didn't have much time. Thinking of this, he decided to give up. Though he felt a little helpless, there was nothing he could do. What if this 9 extreme hammer didn't belong to our dwarves, but was created by you humans? Kenolite paused, a look of disbelief forming. There were indeed cultivation bottlenecks between races. If he hadn't gone astray in practicing another race's secret technique, he was already quite good. Usually, masters obtained secret techniques from other races for reference. Directly learning them is tantamount to courting death, as even similar races have different tendons and body structures. However, such a technique, while incredibly significant, wouldn't necessarily create a powerful being in Kenolite's hands. Keri's actions wouldn't bode well for the dwarves. I have one condition: you can't reveal this technique to anyone but me. My condition is the same: you can't reveal the secret I'm about to share with anyone else. Don't worry, we dwarves are the most trustworthy. I promised you not to tell anyone, and I won't. In that case, I won't hide it. Let me show you the key to all the parts. Controlling the space ring, Kenolite released the parts for the blaster. Kenolite assembled them with incredible speed in less than 10 seconds. Master Keri was dazzled by the speed. It was obvious this wasn't Kenolite's first time assembling these parts. He then took out several newly crafted bullets and expertly loaded them into the blaster, feeling a surge of excitement. In 10 days, they had only managed to assemble a blaster, relying on the abilities of others. In Earth's Mecha era, this would have been a laughable feat. But now, Kenolite felt a surge of pride. This was the only blaster in this world. If you were to bring it out, no one else would even know what it was. Chapter 7, 9 Extreme Hammer. Furthermore, the fire system is powered by a permanent wind magic array, and yours doesn't have any magic array at all. Without a magic array, how can it be powered? Kenolite remained silent in response to Master Keri's 2 questions. Instead, he handed the blaster to Master Keri and said with a smile, "Aim at any target within 1,000 paces. The recoil will be quite strong, so Master Keri, be careful." Facing Kenolite's strange reaction, Master Keri took the blaster suspiciously, aimed it at a large tree in the backyard, and immediately pulled the trigger. Boom! A loud bang echoed, and even Master Keri, caught off guard, stumbled. Then, 4 bullets instantly struck the tree. With 4 consecutive booms, the waist-thick tree snapped in an instant. This was just the explosive charge alone, which had already produced such a powerful force. Kenolite planned to add some small nails to the subsequent blaster rounds. Seeing the weapon in his hands so destructive, Keri's face was filled with shock, and he looked at Kenolite as if he had seen a ghost. The power is almost the same as a swordsman's full-strength attack. My god, there is no magic circle. In that case, ordinary people without magical talent can also use such a weapon. If it is mass-produced, it will be a nightmare for all magicians and swordsmen. Master Keri almost didn't dare to imagine such a scene, and this thing is very suitable for the dwarves, solving their defect of not being able to attack from a distance. Once the whole tribe is equipped with it, the dwarves. Master Keri, do you think it is a good thing for all the dwarves to equip such weapons? No, it will destroy the dwarves. You dwarves have no magicians, and the strongest is actually only a great swordsman, and there are only a few of them. If there are such weapons, not only humans, but also elves will deal with you. One forbidden spell, and you dwarves will be finished. Kenolite's words undoubtedly poured cold water on Master Keri. It also made him realize how hot this weapon is. If humans knew the news, they would definitely do everything possible to get it, and then equip their entire army with it. The consequences of doing so are terrifying to think about. If that time really comes, The demons, the sea tribes, and the elves will all be trash. The human race's strength is currently second only to the demons and the sea tribes. It completely outnumbers other races like the beastmen, elves, and dwarves. The human population now equals the combined population of the beastmen, elves, dwarves, and other races. The demons occupy a separate plane, while the sea tribes' territory is vast and boundless. Therefore, their numbers are naturally incomparable. So what are your other parts used for? They're definitely more powerful than this fire control. I think you should hand over the secrets of the 9 extreme hammer to me first. That would be a fair trade. I can tell you, those parts may not work, but I can give you a finished product in the near future. Future? That sounds so far away, within the next month, but I can't guarantee it. There are some things I'm not sure of. What the Mecha warriors lack right now is a power source, but apparently there's no power source in this world. Kenolite injected energy into the magic cores, but as for the batteries, there's no way to recharge them once they were manufactured. Master Keri pondered for a moment, but he had to agree to Kenolite's request. The blaster, composed of just a few parts, was already so formidable. Surely something composed of a random assortment of parts would be even more formidable. Alright, then, let me teach you the 9 extreme hammer. This one, a master of our dwarven race, by chance, found in an ancient tomb. Judging from the corpse, it's a human. The 9 extreme hammer emphasizes the understanding of power, its clever application, and its combined use. Its essence is the power of a single ounce to achieve a great result. However, I haven't grasped it yet. Stuck at the 3rd hammer, the secret technique of the 9 extreme hammer consists of 9 words: lift, drop, follow, light, nothing, mind, intention, unity, and spirit. Mastering the skill of lift and drop with ease makes one invincible among swordsmen. Mastering the skill of lightness and nothingness makes one invincible at the level of a swordsman. Mastering the skill of unity and intention makes one invincible at the level of a swordsman. As for the spirit, that seems to be only a legend, Master Keri explained earnestly, and Kenolite listened intently, not missing a single word or tone, for he didn't know how Master Keri had received the inheritance. Kenolite listened for 2 days without realizing it. A chaotic jumble of information filled his brain. If he hadn't been reborn, even with his previous memory, he wouldn't have been able to remember it all. But after listening, he suddenly felt a sudden enlightenment. He seemed to grasp something, yet somehow, he didn't. He knew he had mastered something truly extraordinary. Once fully mastered, it would be of immense benefit. Kenolite casually picked up an ordinary hammer from the ground and raised it. In that instant, an idea struck him, and he brought the hammer down. Bang! A clang of metal clashed as his hammer smashed a piece of ore into the tiled floor. Then, his face paled, he staggered, and collapsed. His body was too weak, and the 9 extreme hammer secret technique was too powerful. Even the simplest lift was beyond his current strength. But he was certain the power of the hammer was at the level of a beginner swordsman. For his frail frame to achieve this level was truly remarkable. I'm really surprised that you actually comprehended it. You comprehended it in such a short time. It seems that you are very talented in practicing the 9 extreme hammer. What exactly is the 9 extreme hammer? Is it a martial art or a forging method? The fact that his casual attack could exert such power made him suspect that the 9 extreme hammer was not a forging method at all, but a pure martial art, because when humans study martial arts, they tend to study forging methods. Keri pondered for a moment, then nodded, uncertainly. Forging is about understanding and practice, while martial arts are about application. Therefore, I believe the 9 extreme hammer is a hammer technique. Of course, this is just my opinion. Just look at those incredibly delicate parts, and you'll understand the secrets of the 9 extreme hammer. They complement each other. It seems I'll have to become a blacksmith. I wonder, Master Keri, if you'd be willing to take me on as an apprentice. For your art, I'm always welcome. But, Master Keri paused, which made Kenolite think for a moment. He smiled and said, but what? But you have to promise me that you'll give me priority for anything good. While I may not be able to research it, I still want to study it. Master Keri was persistent and unwilling to give up his research. Especially with a blaster, he would be satisfied if he could get it in the hands of a few dwarves. Although he felt a little embarrassed, he still spoke with difficulty. To be honest, he was afraid that Kenolite would reject him. Can I examine your fire bombs? I can give you my fire bombs, and even my blaster, but I must tell you, these are specially made. If you're not careful, I might hurt you. Kenolite gave the 4 blaster bombs to Master Keri without a second thought. He wasn't afraid of Master Keri replicating them, because the moment they opened the fire, the flames would burn out. He'd warned him to be on the safe side. He didn't want to see Master Keri injured the next time they met. Master Keri seemed deeply touched by Kenolite's overtures. Though he didn't say anything, his once stubborn expression softened. Kenolite couldn't stand this, so he turned and left without even saying goodbye. Having been warned by Master Keri, he naturally wanted to be wary of the person following him. He chose a time when most people were around, and he made it back to the right family safely. Entering the family mansion, Kenolite noticed the strange way the servants looked at him. For some reason, they didn't whisper a word, leaving Kenolite baffled. But at this point, he didn't care about any of this, and quickly returned to his room. He should be safe within the right family. However, just in case, Kenolite made some preparations. With his intelligence, some small traps were beyond the reach of ordinary people. Thankfully, he didn't notice anyone following him, which eased his guard considerably. He didn't believe the person pursuing him could be a great swordsman or a mage, as that was simply impossible. Upon returning to the family, Kenolite didn't rush to assemble his mecha warrior or research energy materials. Instead, he simply lay down on his bed and prepared for a good night's sleep. Over 10 days without a proper night's rest had weakened his already weak body even further. Now completely safe, Kenolite fell asleep almost as soon as he closed his eyes. This time, he slept completely, sleeping for the entire day. Upon waking, despite feeling hungry, Kenolite felt his mental strength was remarkably strong. He quickly dressed and headed to the kitchen, where he immediately devoured a feast. The kitchen was empty, but there were some prepared desserts and dried meats. This was a large family, after all, so they cooked more than just 1 or 2 dishes. It was a mess, and some things needed to be prepared early. There were footsteps, and Kenolite heard them clearly. He immediately grabbed 2 loaves of bread and hid in the cupboard. But the next moment, his expression froze. Why was he hiding? He was the 3rd young master of the right family, and he had to hide in his own kitchen to eat. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8, Marriage. Hey, Kenolite's luck is just too bad. The Robert family actually broke off their engagement. This is a complete disgrace for our right family, a servant said, a hint of gloating in his tone. It was clear from his tone that he had no respect for Kenolite. Another servant nodded fiercely upon hearing this, carefully glancing around and saying, although Kenolite is the 3rd young master of the right family, he's a complete loser. Miss Lanier is the pride of the Robert family. How could she fall for a loser? The Robert family was originally a big military family, and they hold a high position of power in Cheyenne City. If it weren't for the good relationship between the previous generation of family heads, such a joke wouldn't have happened. Who would have thought that Kenolite was such a loser? Hey, someone's moved something here. Upon discovering Kenolite's tampering, the 2 servants' faces changed drastically. They immediately looked around in horror, naturally worried that others would overhear their conversation. Casually discussing their master was a serious offense. A beating would be the least of their punishment. They could be expelled from the right family. If they were truly expelled, they would likely find themselves starving to death. Kenolite hid in a closet, unaware of the 2 guilty servants. After they left in terror, Kenolite's face was filled with bitterness. Lania Robert was actually his fiancée. But no matter how hard he racked his brains, he couldn't find the slightest memory of her. What was going on? Had he not known about this before? How could he not know about something so serious? From the servants' discussions, Kenolite was certain he was the only one in the world who didn't know about this. The thought of it was absurd. If this was true, then his cousin Elilette's beating to death might have been justified, and he was about to face a catastrophic fate. The girl with Andicris was likely his fiancée, Lani Robert. Andicris had given him the gold coin simply to embarrass him in front of Lani Robert. This also suggests that Lania Robert could have prevented this incident to a certain extent. If that were the case, perhaps he could have already resolved the matter. While others might see Lania Robert as a stunning beauty, Kenolite didn't see her that way. She was simply a self-righteous noble, whom he didn't take seriously. He had come to the other world to study mechas. He didn't have much time for romance. Kenolite returned to his room and immediately began assembling the mecha warrior. Although some specialized parts required specific temperatures for assembly, for Kenolite, this was a piece of cake. He was a noble, and one with extensive technological knowledge. Cooling certain parts for a while was easy enough. As he'd anticipated, once the mecha warrior was assembled, Kenolite's problem arose. It lacked a power supply and programming, making it impossible for it to follow orders. Despite his vast knowledge, he couldn't build a computer from scratch. Furthermore, where was the internet? Even if you had magic crystals to provide energy, what about the program? His original intention was to make a simple mecha warrior, but now it seemed impossible. At this time, he thought of the strange formations he had seen before coming to this world. Perhaps he could use the formations to activate the mecha, but he knew nothing about formations. It seemed that what he had to do was to learn magic. He was a necromancer, so even if there were other methods of practicing magic, he could not practice them, and his identity as a necromancer could not be told to others. So now a method that was not a solution became his only choice, that is, to practice the 9 extreme hammer, wait until he was strong enough, and then look for the method of practicing the necromancer. Then he would study the magic formations and make mecha warriors. So after only staying at home for 2 days, Kenolite left again reluctantly. When it comes to blacksmithing practice, Master Keri's place is undoubtedly the best place. However, this time, as he left his own courtyard, a middle-aged man who resembled a steward blocked his path. He looked at Kenolite calmly and said, "Young Master Kenolite, please come with me. The head of the family needs you." This man was his adoptive father's steward, Wolf, who had served the head of the family since childhood and held a higher position within the family than even some of the elders. Wolf then glanced at Kenolite's left hand. The 2 storage rings on those fingers stood out to him. It wasn't that he couldn't afford them, but storage rings were a symbol of status. Apart from magicians, no one else was worthy of possessing them. He knew that Kenolite's life in the right family wasn't easy. While others didn't know, he knew everything about the family. Naturally, the head of the family knew too, though he simply acquiesced to all of it. Okay, Kenolite didn't waste any words. He wasn't in a position to object at this point. His strength was there, and in this world, the strong were respected. He was no fool. His adopted father likely knew everything that had happened to him, it was just that he didn't take it seriously. As Wolf entered the hall, he saw, besides his father, another middle-aged man. The middle-aged man exuded a fierce aura, and just looking at Kenolite sent a chill down his spine. Kenolite's father was equally imposing, yet he seemed much calmer. He lacked the shrewdness of a businessman, instead possessing a unique wisdom. After Kenolite entered the hall, Wolf turned and left. The middle-aged man smiled at him and said warmly, "Kenolite, I'm your uncle Auguribert. It seems you forgot me. There's no need to be so reserved with me. Go ahead." Auguribert's friendly demeanor was indeed reassuring, but Kenolite wasn't of this world, and his thinking was beyond the comprehension of these people. Kenolite's father, Kenolite, possessed a gentle demeanor that would immediately intrigue anyone unfamiliar with his character. However, Kenolite knew his father was a standard junior great swordsman, and his gentleness was merely a matter of habit. "Your uncle Augu has spoken, why don't you sit down?" Kenolite's words were clearly effective. For the right family, they were orders. Kenolite casually found a spot to take action. A hint of surprise crossed Auguribert's eyes as he noticed the storage rings on Kenolite's fingers, 2 of them. "Kenolite, are you a magician now?" Auguribert's tone shifted slightly, but Kenolite paid no mind. Instead, his expression was filled with respect. He replied seriously, "No, my mental strength is extremely weak, making me unsuitable for practicing magic. These 2 storage rings were given to me by Andekers. Miss Lania Robert was also present at the time, and I thought she would tell you." Kenolite's words startled not only Calvin Wright but also August Robert. Kenolite's words practically resolved all his doubts. Furthermore, he readily admitted his actions in front of the 2 patriarchs. This was a subtle euphemism. If August Robert pressed the issue, it would have seemed petty. Calvin Wright, standing by, suddenly felt he had misjudged Kenolite. It seemed he didn't truly understand his son. "Well, I did hear Lanier say that, but now it seems he misunderstood you. But I'd like to know why you bought the space ring." "Logically, you don't need it," Auguribert spoke again. From Kenolite's tone, he didn't think Kenolite bought the space ring to show off his magician status. After all, magician status requires recognition from the Magician's Guild. Each level has a corresponding medal and uniform. Without any of these, a magician's status would be considered a forgery, or it would indicate that their magician level is extremely low. For those mercenaries who live on the edge of life, a stored ring worth 5,000 gold coins is well worth the risk. If they come across such a good thing, they will definitely not let it go. The family has some precious items that need to be transported to other places. It's not very safe if they are escorted. I feel I'm old enough to contribute to the family. Excellent. Kenolite's words were clear, using the stored ring to transport important items. And it must be said that his idea was very good. For magicians, their status is noble. Asking them to transport goods is an insult to them. Even magic apprentices would not be willing to do such a face-losing thing, because the result of that would inevitably be so disgraceful that they could not survive in the magic world. But Kenolite is an exception. He has no possibility of practicing magic. If he helps the family transport important things, it will definitely be a great help. After all, ordinary people can't open the space ring at all. Kenolite's thoughts made Calvin Wright thoughtful for a while. Suddenly he found that he was really sorry for his son. After the family suffered so much unfair treatment, he still wanted to consider the family. How many people can match such a sense of family belonging? For a moment, the two family heads looked at each other. At this time, they seemed to have some special thoughts in their hearts, but they did not intend to say it out loud. Chapter 9, Breaking Off the Engagement. Kano, do you know what we're discussing here? Og Roberts suddenly spoke, and Calvin Wright glanced over. However, meeting their gazes, Calvin Wright smiled calmly and said, "Actually, I don't know. I still have a fiancée, but my current situation doesn't allow me to marry Lanya Robert. Her happiness cannot be ruined in my hands. Kano, you're a brilliant child, so clever that it astonishes me. It's just that Lanya is a magician, and she'll soon be going to the Magic Empire for further training. So, I'm sorry, studying in the Magic Empire would be a great boon for the Robert family of Cheyenne City in the Morin Kingdom. If Lanya Robert wanted to return in the future, she would at least become a countess. Because of Lanya's talent, she was completely out of the family's control. In fact, the family would need her in the future. Such incidents were not uncommon in the kingdom. After all, for them, the empire was a place they could not afford to offend. The Magic Empire, in particular, had two saint-level magicians. Their terrifying power was beyond description. To graduate from the Magic Empire, one must at least reach the rank of mage. And there was only one mage in the Magic Guild in all of Cheyenne City. Kenolite's wisdom earned the approval of both family heads. According to the principle of strength matching the right marriage, Kenolite's choice was indeed the right one. This marriage was a mistake on the part of our Robert family, so I want to make amends. I feel your magical talent will eventually return, so why not give you some magical materials? Please don't refuse me. This is a gift from my uncle. Kenolite truly wanted to refuse. With so many things to offer, it would be pointless. But looking at Og Robert, he didn't want to refuse. Thank you, Uncle Og, I accept your generosity. Well, you still have matters to discuss, so I won't stay long. I'll come visit you again soon. Goodbye, Uncle Og. After seeing Og Robert off, Calvin Wright stared intently at Kenolite, his gaze as if trying to discern a flower from Kenolite's body. Father, I'm an adult now. Send me to some remote place. I'll only bring shame to the family. I called you here this time to tell you something. You're an adult now, and you need to manage the family business. Considering your situation, I want you to go to the borderlands of the Babylonian kingdom. Although there are many goblins, barbarians, and bandits there, it's still very safe. The Babylonian kingdom borders the savage plains. There, the people are fierce and war-torn. Even food is a challenge, not to mention business. The Savage Plains, also known as the Bandit Plains, is home to a large number of dwarves, goblins, barbarians, and ogres. There are no laws or civilizations there. If you have the power, you rule. As an ancient battlefield, the Savage Plains also contains many battlefield ruins. If you want to seek the training methods of necromancy, it would be a good place. It seems that the family has already made a decision about him. To avoid bringing shame to the family, they decided to send him to the most remote place to fend for himself. Although he felt a little depressed, he didn't care. Because it was so desolate that no one ventured there, the strongest were swordsmen. Theoretically, this was beneficial to his growth and safety. Do you think the family exiled you there? Actually, I requested it, Calvin Wright said, his tone slightly sad. Kenolite, however, smiled calmly, saying, "Thank you, Father. I think that place is wonderful, but I suddenly feel that my choice was wrong. Perhaps you shouldn't have gone to that filthy place, and I must tell you, you have no escort. You will travel alone through the kingdom of Shabak to the border of the kingdom of Babylon. There is the right manor, and that's where you will run it. When do I leave? His own father wouldn't let him die. It was probably the elder's decision, and for the sake of the family, this adopted father had no choice but to abandon him. However, he didn't feel much of a sense of belonging to the family. It was too dangerous here, so it was best to leave as soon as possible. Ever since Ali Wright had attempted to kill him, he had wanted to leave. He didn't want to be remembered any longer, and he didn't think he would have the same luck again. When the time comes to leave the right family, the sky will be high and free for birds to fly, the sea will be vast and free for fish to swim. Being tied down here is just too boring. He used to be frustrated when he read novels. Why did those people always find excuses to stay in the family, fighting and arguing, so troublesome and tedious? Don't worry, I'll give you some gold coins, and I won't take back your Uncle Og's magical materials. This matter is between the two of us. Thank you, Father, I'm leaving. Just come to the blacksmith's shop and let me know when you get the notice. Kenolite respectfully took his luggage and turned to leave. He knew this might be his last greeting. Who knew what the next time they met would be like? After leaving the family, Kenolite quickly arrived at the blacksmith's shop. Upon seeing Master Keri, Kenolite was startled. Kenolite's face was pockmarked and his skin was dark. He stood there furiously, puffing his beard and glaring, as if he had suffered a great loss. Seeing Kenolite's arrival, he immediately calmed down, a grin spreading across his face, which only made him look even more ridiculous. You're so persistent. Looks like I need to consider putting nails and poison in the explosive shells. If that's the case, you're almost dead by now. Kenolite's sneer shamed the upright dwarf master. After all, stealing someone else's research wasn't a good thing. I'll be training with you on the 9 extreme hammer for a while and making a lot of explosive shells. I'll give you a set as compensation. I'm sorry, but I can't make the other thing. What's the other thing? Master Keri's face was filled with anticipation. The explosive gun was already so powerful, and the combination of its parts would be even more powerful. So, he wanted to see it. Kenolite paused, then smiled. With a wave of his hand, he pulled out the assembled mech warrior from his stored ring. I'll give you what I said I'd give you for research. However, I must squander all the iron ore you have. Knowing he was learning his trade at the blacksmith's shop, Calvin Wright should have let him stay a few more days. Explosive bombs were mass-produced, so he naturally wanted to build a few more mechas during this time. Seeing the full-height mech appear before him, Master Keri's eyes lit up. He immediately rushed forward, caressing its steely hide, his entire body trembling. Oh my god, what is this? Is it made of those parts? This is a gift from the dwarf god. It can actually stand here on its own. It's made entirely of steel. It can actually resemble a human. If it were covered in human skin, it would be absolutely human. Master Keri's words startled Kino. It reminded him of robots in American films, killing machines cloaked in human skin. Perhaps he could replicate that. However, the materials were too advanced, and he hadn't even found a power source yet, so even thinking about that was a bit too much. He simply wanted to strengthen his body quickly and then seek out the methods of necromancer cultivation. Oh, my god, why can't they move? Because they have no energy. They can't move. Kenolite held the small hammer, lifting and lowering it with all his might. Every blow made his hands ache, and in a moment, sweat soaked his body. But he didn't care, and continued to hammer. He had little time, and every second counted. Isn't there an energy source for the goblin in the blueprints? Bang, no. If there was, do you think I would give you one without a soul? Kenolite's expression suddenly paused as he spoke. Soul, those two words gave him a flash of inspiration. Master Keri also reacted, looking at Kenolite with a hint of excitement. He spoke impatiently, perhaps a necromancer can help us solve this problem, because this iron frame looks like a skeleton, and with just a touch of soul fire, you can control a skeleton warrior. Perhaps soul fire can also control this iron frame. Master Keri, do you know what you're talking about? Necromancers are evil beings despised by everyone in the god and demon continent. And can you find them? I know a necromancer, in the Savage Plains. Master Keri's words made Kenolite's pupils shrink. Master Keri actually knew the necromancer he had been desperately trying to find. Master Keri looked at the mech warrior as if he had seen something sacred. For these masters of forging, Creating a divine artifact and becoming world famous was absolutely unavoidable. Master Keri wants to go with me to the Savage Plains to find the necromancer and activate these mech warriors. Activate, that's a very creative word. The dwarf god sent me to see you, and it seems he has a purpose. From today on, we are best partners. Kenolite nodded solemnly, his expression calm, but inwardly, he was beaming with joy. An adult dwarf as a bodyguard was like adding a swordsman-level thug. With the addition of a blaster, there was nothing to worry about unless he encountered a great swordsman. Having such a helper in the future forging process would undoubtedly be of extraordinary benefit to him. Master Keri followed him to research mechas. If successful, he would surely become famous in the continent of gods and demons. Chapter 10, Provocation. Kenolite's days at the blacksmith shop were full of activity. Ever since they had established their partnership, they had thrown themselves fully into the crafting process. Kenolite crafted the parts, while Master Keri crafted the explosive bombs. Kenolite's concession excited Master Keri. If he had known Kenolite would reveal the secret of gunpowder, perhaps he would have been spared the suffering he endured. Of course, he had sworn to the dwarven god never to reveal the secret of gunpowder. The cost of revealing such a terrifying weapon was simply too much for him to bear. Kenolite, on the other hand, had no concerns about the spread of gunpowder. Future weapon upgrades would utilize energy-based weapons, rendering gunpowder obsolete. Anyone who possessed gunpowder would become his target. To preserve the pristine state of the other world, he had no desire to bring destruction here. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, a month had already passed. Kenolite was puzzled that his father hadn't bothered him. It must be said that Kenolite's comprehension of the 9 extreme hammer was quite advanced. In just 1 month, he had reached the level of the falling sword. His current physique was completely different from before, and he could lift over 100 pounds of iron with ease. His combat prowess was now comparable to that of a mid-level swordsman. If we were to measure his attack power alone, even a high-level swordsman would be far behind. The only drawback was that these days of forging had made him look much darker. To those who didn't know him, they might mistake him for a coal miner from the slums. However, seeing his gleaming steel skin, he felt excited. After all this frantic forging, he had finally gained even the most basic self-defense skills. On the continent of gods and demons, reaching the level of a high-level swordsman by the age of 15 or 16 was considered quite impressive. Those who could break through to the level of a swordmaster were truly among the most gifted. The sound of footsteps outside made Kenolite and Master Keri frown. They had already put up a sign stating they were closed, but someone else was approaching, clearly on business. Just hearing the footsteps, Keno felt a sense of familiarity. The person approaching seemed to be his cousin, Alilit. "Keno, where are you, my dear cousin?" a brazen voice echoed, but Kenolite remained calm. Ali's presence was likely a family message, but sending Ali here seemed deeply inappropriate. Ali had suffered at Keno's hands and was desperate for a chance to vent his frustration. Now, with this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, he wouldn't let it slip by. "Hey, where's my cousin?" Ali looked around, but saw no familiar figure. There was only a dwarf and a young man clad in black. If it weren't for the family rumors that Kenolite was here, he would have thought he'd come to the wrong place. It seemed impossible to hide a third person here. Alilit's gaze finally settled on Kenolite, his face filled with disbelief. Perhaps he had never imagined Kenolite could be so dark. Kenolite's skin wasn't actually that dark, merely stained with iron dust and soot. If washed, it would be a healthy, wheat-colored complexion. Oh my god. Who turned my handsome cousin Keno into this? This is simply amazing. Alex's face was filled with disbelief. He circled Keno several times, suppressing the urge to laugh until his face turned purple. He had originally wanted to beat Keno, but now he had no such thoughts. Telling others about Keno's current appearance was definitely the most exciting thing for him. It's a masterpiece. It's simply a masterpiece. Cousin Keno, can you tell me how you did it? Keno didn't care about Alex's humiliation at all. He remained calm and kept tapping the parts in his hand. Ha, sorry, Cousin Keno, I just can't help it. With skin like that, no one would believe you were from the right family. Do you know what you look like? A slave in a coal mine. That feels so good. Ha, I'm dying of laughter. I'm here to announce the family's decree, dear cousin. You've reached adulthood. According to family rules, you'll be sent out to gain experience. And your training ground is the right manor in the kingdom of Babylon. If you're lucky, you might even marry a goblin. Alex patted Keno's shoulder, then burst into laughter and walked out. Suddenly, his conscience struck him, and he worried about his unfortunate cousin. If he could make it to Right Manor alive, he would be extremely lucky. Not long after Alex left, another figure entered the blacksmith shop, another acquaintance of Keno's, and one with whom he had a grudge, Andikers. When Andikers saw Kenolite, he looked quizzical for a moment, then burst out in laughter. Kenolite's appearance was truly comical, especially considering his noble status. The mere sight of the sword ring on Kenolite's left hand instantly filled him with humiliation. Then, his face lit up with anger, and he glared fiercely at Kenolite. You were once a direct descendant of the Wright family, but now you are no longer. Without your former protective umbrella, killing you would be as easy as killing a chicken. Kneel down and kowtow 3 times, and perhaps I can spare your life. Are you sure you dare to kowtow to me? If the Wright family knew, even as the Chris family's eldest son, they would retaliate and kill you. Kenolite spoke in an icy tone, causing Andikris's face to darken. It was indeed the truth. If the Wright family learned of this, his status as the Chris family's eldest son would be no guarantee of survival. For a family, reputation is paramount. Andikris's request was undoubtedly a slap in the face of the Wright family. In this god-demon continent, where the strong prey on the weak, only the blood of the enemy can wash away humiliation. Yes, I cannot humiliate you too much, but it seems you should return my space ring and magic materials. The space ring and magic materials should indeed be returned to you. But I think you should wait until I leave Cheyenne City. Otherwise, if Lanier Robert hears about this, everything you've done will backfire. Kenolite sneered, his words further deflated Andikris. If Lanier Robert knew about this, the consequences would surely be even worse than Kenolite's predictions. Thank you for your reminder, lowly man, otherwise I would have done something really stupid. However, your words do give you a little more time to be safe. I hope you'll be more careful when you leave Cheyenne City. Andikris's face darkened, and after a cold smile, he immediately turned and left. However, as he passed by Master Keri, he frowned. In his opinion, dwarves were extremely stubborn, expecting them to show any respect was simply impossible. However, this dwarf seemed to have no intention of speaking from the beginning, a faint sneer in his eyes. After Andikris left, Master Keri looked at Kenolite. After a moment's hesitation, he asked, if that brat really tries to intercept you, how will you deal with them? To expedite our departure, I feel it's necessary to apply some pressure. The pressure from the Chris family will help us reach the Savage Plains faster, but if you kill their eldest son, they'll send experts to hunt you down. Expert? You mean the great sword master? Kenolite sneered, which made Master Keri realize that with their strength and equipment, aside from the great sword master, they didn't seem to need to worry about their own safety. At a range of 1,000 yards, the mere appearance of a sword master was practically a death sentence. Death was only a matter of time. And the Chris family simply couldn't send a great sword master level expert just for their eldest son. Those people weren't easily available. Moreover, Andikris didn't need to do anything himself. That would be an insult to his status. How could a noble, so high and mighty, casually cause trouble for others? Master Keri's equipment was simple, a mere 2-foot iron hammer, the head of which was a foot across. As for Kenolite, he had also crafted a weapon during this period. It was also an iron hammer, similar to Master Keri's, but his hammer was hammered from a pile of iron, a process that took 10 days. Both its weight and hardness were far greater than Master Keri's. It wasn't that he didn't want to use other weapons, but the 9 Extreme Hammer was a set of hammer techniques. While using a heavy sword could increase its power, the effect wasn't as strong as a heavy hammer. Furthermore, the weight of the hammer was a training exercise. Daily weighted running would gradually strengthen his body. The day he could treat the hammer like nothing would signify his growing strength. After all, it would take a long time to reach the Light Manor on the edge of the Babylonian kingdom from Cheyenne City. With frequent stops and starts, it would take at least 6 months. For 6 months, he couldn't open the furnace to forge iron, so he could only run with heavy loads. If he had the chance, Kenolite would also rob some bandits to increase his income. After leaving the blacksmith shop, Master Keri had a premonition that he might never return. Looking at the blacksmith shop where he had worked for more than 10 years, he still felt very sad. However, this time, when he left, he probably didn't expect that he, Master Keri, would become a supermaster of the dwarves, and even the entire god and demon continent, leading the dwarves to follow Kenolite and make the entire other world tremble with fear. Chapter 11, Assault. Gazing at Cheyenne City behind him, Kenolite remained calm. He had arrived in this world by accident and felt no sense of belonging to the right family, not now, and certainly not in the future. Master Keri, please call me Keno from now on. The right name doesn't belong to me, okay, Keno. But don't call me Master Keri anymore. Just call me Keri. I can see you don't really respect the elderly or the young. Keri's words made Keno smile. Indeed, he wasn't one to respect the elderly or the young. On Earth, he had neither elders nor juniors. Not long after the two left Cheyenne City, news reached the city's four major families. Since this involved a direct descendant of the right family, they couldn't help but be concerned. Perhaps no one had expected that all four families would send forces simultaneously, and the goal was the same, to kill Kenolite before he left Cheyenne City within 100 miles. Just 50 miles outside of Cheyenne City, the two were blocked. A swordsman and three high-ranking swordsmen stood blatantly in their way, their greedy eyes fixed on Keno, as if they had spotted some treasure. To avoid trouble, Keno had removed his sword ring and made a necklace around his neck. His clothing was ordinary, yet he was still robbed. The thieves must have been well prepared, having already ascertained everything. "Are you from the Chris family?" Keno asked tentatively, only to be met with a strange expression. After a brief pause, they all nodded in unison, saying, "Yes, we are from the Chris family." This startled Keno. It seemed a little unexpected. Their reaction suggested they weren't from the Chris family. If not the Chris family, then whose family was it? The Robert family? Did he have a feud with them? Or the Wright family? Or the Dracula family? But since they had come to his door, it meant there was already a grudge. In that case, there was no point in leaving them alive. On the way here, Keno deliberately chose flat terrain. This would minimize the chance of a surprise attack and maximize the effectiveness of his blaster. Without any cover, with a swordsman's speed, dodging the blaster seemed impossible. Keno pulled two loaded blasters from his storage bag and handed one to Keri. Then, the two of them sneered, giving the four men on the other side a bad feeling. The blasters in Keno and Keri's hands, while somewhat unusual, were completely new to them. Not even a top saint-level expert had seen one. However, as mercenaries, they couldn't afford to be frightened easily. Furthermore, they knew that if anyone approached, their advantage would be easy to escape. So, after a brief pause, all four men charged forward, heavy swords in hand. Seeing this, Keri and Keno rushed forward without hesitation. Keri's strength rivaled that of a swordsman, and with his blaster, he could easily take on a swordsman and three high-level swordsmen. As for Keno, his current strength could put up a fight against a high-level swordsman, but victory was highly unlikely. Two high-level swordsmen surrounded Keno, while the remaining swordsmen and high-level swordsmen surrounded Keri. It wasn't that they didn't want to separate the two, but the dwarf's stubborn temper made verbal solutions nearly impossible. In a matter of moments, the two sides were closing in. During the attack, Keno deliberately ran slower, allowing Keri to charge ahead. If they could quickly eliminate the swordsman, the situation would be much better. As he anticipated, the opposing swordsman charged forward with incredible speed. Master Keri seized the opportunity and pulled the trigger, unleashing 4 explosive shells. The loud noise of the explosive shells startled the swordsman. A surge of pale blue fighting spirit instantly enveloped him. He then raised his heavy sword and struck the 2 explosive shells. Bang! A loud bang echoed as 2 of the explosive shells struck the swordsman. In a flash of fire and smoke, the swordsman let out a scream and took several steps back. His pale blue Dowki was half depleted, and his skin was covered in numerous wounds. He appeared to be seriously injured, though none of the wounds were vital. This situation stunned Keno. He had initially assumed that the explosive bombs could instantly kill a swordsman-level expert, but now it seemed he had underestimated their strength. Keri was also taken aback, but immediately rushed forward. With a loss of Dowki, the swordsman's strength had greatly decreased, and defeating him would likely be a piece of cake. Witnessing the power of Keno's explosive gun, the faces of the 2 oncoming high-level swordsmen suddenly changed. However, Keno was not Keri. At such close range, if he couldn't kill one of the high-level swordsmen, he wouldn't be a mecha genius. He pulled the trigger, and 4 explosive bombs blasted out. Almost without a trace of suspense, the oncoming high-level swordsmen were reduced to shreds. With a roar of fury, the other high-level swordsman rushed towards Keno, and with a fierce blow of his heavy sword, he threatened to cleave Keno in 2. Keno remained calm, quickly pulling out a shield and another explosive gun from his space ring. He quickly blocked the senior swordsman's blow, only to be slammed to the ground. He pointed his explosive gun at the senior swordsman's chest, but the senior swordsman's pupils shrank, and without hesitation, he slashed at Keno's arm. Bang! 4 explosive shells ripped through the senior swordsman's upper body, staining Keno's face with blood. At the same time, he felt a sharp pain in his right hand, where a half-foot-long wound had formed. Keno smiled bitterly, realizing he was wrong. Back on Earth, if a gun pointed at a vital point, he would never have dared to move, because no matter how fast a sword was, it couldn't be faster than a gun. But this world was vastly different. A warrior's honor was greater than life itself, and a sword could sometimes be even faster than a gun. These swordsmen's entire families belonged to the clan, and that included their lives. If they failed to complete their mission, they would likely die upon returning. Running back would mean death, and his family would be implicated. Compared to being spurned by all the warriors, death was a relief, and it would also benefit his family. So, despite knowing the power of the blaster, the senior swordsman still launched a desperate attack. His strength, far superior to that of an average person, nearly severed Keno's arm. Faith in glory is deadly. Keno learned his lesson this time, and he needed to be more careful. Without absolute strength, he couldn't intimidate these people. Keno only had 3 blasters. Keri used 1, and he used 2. Now, he had to reload to use them. But he wanted to reload, but the others wouldn't give him the chance. The last senior swordsman, with a leaping slash from a distance, landed directly in front of Keno. Bang! A loud noise echoed, accompanied by a series of bursts of fire. If it weren't for the strong shield in his hands, the blow would have likely cleaved it in 2. With a lingering fear, Keno quickly drew his hammer and brought it down, striking the senior swordsman in the foot. "Ah, bastard!" A scream echoed, and the senior swordsman's rage intensified. With a fierce thrust of his heavy sword, he unexpectedly sent Keno's hammer flying. This situation once again caught Keno by surprise. His foot had been smashed to pulp, so he should have at least taken 2 steps back. These guys were acting completely unconventionally. Despicable boy, we mercenaries aren't those rubbish soldiers. Broken limbs are normal. In the past, when we sieged monsters, even if a leg was devoured, we would charge forward again. The time we screamed in pain was enough to kill us. Bang! I have to say, your fire control is indeed powerful. Your shield is indeed sturdy. But I wonder how long you can hold out. Bang! Another heavy blow, and Keno's left hand was completely numb. For a mercenary who had experienced life and death for years, his meager strength was nothing. Even the initial powerful burst of the blaster didn't frighten them. Instead, it only excites them. The only thing that reassured Keno was that the other swordsman was completely suppressed. Keri's strength was indeed comparable to that of an intermediate swordsman, and his explosive bombs were incredibly effective in sneak attacks. Combined with the 9 extreme hammer, he consistently dominated the opponent. The swordsman, on the other hand, could only grimly hold on. It was a matter of how long he could hold out, given the situation. The senior swordsman, seemingly aware of the problem, continued to attack Keno frantically. Keno's shield was indeed exceptionally well made, the dwarven craftsmanship was truly remarkable. With victory imminent, Keno had to hold out no matter what, otherwise, he would be dead. The continuous heavy blows were undoubtedly exhausting. Unable to kill Keno, the senior swordsman was furious. Sensing that the swordsman's strength would sooner or later, he leaped to his feet and roared, "Take another heavy blow from me." Keno's heart trembled at the sight. His hands were nearly numb from holding on until now. If he took another blow, his shield would surely be shattered. As his thoughts raced, an idea struck Keno. With a sudden, convincing look of success, he pulled out his blaster from his space ring and aimed it at the senior swordsman. This sudden change of events frightened the senior swordsman to death. He paused almost instinctively, then turned sideways and retreated. However, the gunshot didn't come, and the senior swordsman was filled with shame and anger. If he still didn't realize he had been tricked, his life would be over. Taking advantage of the senior swordsman's evasion, Keno quickly reloaded his blaster. The moment the bullets were loaded, he laughed again. However, the senior swordsman hesitated only briefly before turning and fleeing. Having already experienced 2 previous incidents, he didn't want to repeat them. Furthermore, reporting the situation with this weapon would likely atone for his sins. Chapter 12, Equipment Upgrade. Bang! 4 explosive shells blasted out, missing the terrified senior swordsman. However, the shots didn't miss, instead striking the swordsman on the other side. Kaner's marksmanship was undeniable. 2 of the 4 explosive shells struck vital points. The swordsman barely struggled, falling to the ground dead. The senior swordsman had only run a dozen steps when he saw the swordsman slain. His expression drastically changed, and he fled frantically. But Kener didn't care about such a sitting duck. A senior swordsman didn't need his help. Keri felt embarrassed after failing to deal with a wounded swordsman for so long, and now, with the opportunity, he naturally spared no effort. He charged forward, unleashing the 9 extreme hammer without hesitation. With a single blow, he blasted the senior swordsman, sword and all, into the earth. Kener searched the ground, but found only a few gold coins, not even enough to buy back his spent explosive shells. However, the heavy swords of several people were quite good, and he stored them in his interspatial ring. He would definitely practice with a heavy sword when he had the chance. Seeing the trembling and frustrated Keri approached and gently comforted him. "Boy, you've done quite well. It's not easy to hold your own against a high-level swordsman in such a short time. No matter how great a talent is, if they die, they're no longer a talent. We must find a blacksmith immediately. We must refurbish our equipment. Otherwise, we won't be able to leave Morin Kingdom, and both of us will die. There's a town nearby with a dwarf from my former tribe. Asking him for help should be easy, then let's go." Kano ignored the wound on his arm. This direct confrontation completely overturned his understanding of the other world. He had originally believed that the blaster possessed absolute defensive power and deterrence, but now he realized he was wrong, terribly wrong. The blaster's attack was not lethal to a swordsman in his prime, unless the opponent didn't activate their fighting spirit, in which case a single strike would kill them. Moreover, the swordsman here had incredibly fast reflexes. Dodging attacks at close range was practically impossible. Even a master swordsman facing directly could easily kill Kano the moment he fired. This made Kano feel a sense of mortal danger. This time, they were only 1 swordsman and 3 high-level swordsmen. If they had been 2 swordsmen, it wouldn't be impossible to kill them one by one. Meanwhile, each of the 4 major families in Xianlan City could easily mobilize 10 master swordsmen to deal with them. In terms of gold coins, the commission for a master swordsman was only 1,000 gold coins. Faced with this enormous crisis, Kano naturally couldn't foolishly continue forward. He needed to prepare some weapons for ambush. First, the 4-shot explosive rifle was no longer suitable. It consumed too many bullets and took too long to reload. A submachine gun was a bit difficult to build, but making a revolver or pistol that was as powerful as it was shouldn't be that difficult. To increase the attack power, a double-barreled pistol was naturally designed, with 6 rounds, allowing for 3 rounds of ammunition. Now was no time to economize, so he naturally wouldn't just make 1. Otherwise, if the blunder of not being able to reload happened again like today, he'd be dead wrong. Just having a revolver or a gun wasn't enough. Without defense, he'd be dead too. In this world, there were also long-range shooters. Even encountering a magic archer wouldn't be a problem. While the likelihood of encountering one was low, it wasn't impossible. It was the first time he'd seen a swordsman, so a magic archer wasn't out of the question. Even with a shield, he wasn't guaranteed to withstand the blow. The senior swordsman had taught him a vivid lesson today. Since he couldn't withstand it, he could only ambush the enemy. Keri was indeed very familiar with the dwarf. With just a few words, he had the dwarf pack up and go home. After enclosing the smithy, Kaner and Keri immediately began forging rapidly. "What are these things? They look powerful. Why did you make the shield like this?" If the opponent thrusts hard, a swordsman-level expert can use his fighting spirit to pierce the shield. These things look a lot like explosive bombs, but with so much gunpowder, won't they be very powerful? Keri kept talking, his face full of confusion. At this moment, he suddenly realized that Kano knew too much. Even if he had the goblin weapon diagram, he shouldn't have made it so casually. Kano looked at the finished parts and said casually without hesitation, "This is a one-way high-explosive bomb, more than 10 times more powerful than an explosive bomb. I'll make a few shields specifically for you. When the time comes, use them to ambush people. It will definitely be effective." After hearing this, Keri immediately understood, but he also refused without hesitation. "As a stubborn dwarf, I won't do such a despicable thing. Even if I die, I'll die with honor." "Die, my master Keri. If you die, there's nothing you can do. I need to modify not only my shield, but also my hammer and mace. I want to show those who are planning to kill me what it means to stab someone, and if they flee, ordinary blaster rifles won't be effective. So I need to craft a heavy sniper rifle with a long range, preferably silenced, for unstoppable attack. Fortunately, I have a space ring, otherwise I wouldn't be able to equip it. Even with the two of them constantly busy, the mess took 2 whole months to create. And that's with a mass production of bullets, otherwise it would be even more troublesome. Seeing the dazzling array of stab weapons, even Keri broke into cold sweat. The great swordsman was unsure. If the swordsman was caught off guard and stabbed, he would probably lose his combat effectiveness if not killed. After 2 comfortable months in the town, Kano and Keri set out on their journey again. Their safety in the town wasn't due to the enemy's failure to find them, but rather to the sheer number of people. The brazen attack on the 3rd young master of the Wright family had a significant impact. However, shortly after leaving town, Keri and Kano sensed approaching danger. And this time, it wasn't just a single swordsman and 3 high-ranking swordsmen. Swish, the whistle of an arrow startled the 2 men. Without a second thought, they dropped to the ground, only to see a sharp arrow streak overhead, shooting straight into the distance. Kano glanced around but saw no one. But when he looked at the arrow, he noticed its surface was covered in beautiful patterns, creating a striking effect. Damn it, it's an elven archer. Only they can wield such sharp arrows. They lurk in the jungle, so if they try to hide, they're impossible to detect. Keri's keen eyes spotted the sharp arrow as well. Furthermore, the dwarves and elves have a good relationship, and combined with the elves' distinctive features, Keri quickly determined the archer was from the elven tribe. The elves, a gathering place of handsome men and beautiful women, are renowned throughout the divine and demonic continent for their magic and archery. Even now, the entire elven race is far more powerful than the magic empire. Elves, both men and women, are not the best magicians or archers. Almost everyone is a soldier, and some even specialize in both magic and archery. Not to mention, there were at least 3 saint-level magicians among the elves, and that was hundreds of years ago. In melee combat, the elves have druids. Powerful druids can transform into dragons, possessing some of their abilities. In aerial combat, the elves have flying flower elves, whose magical talents are unmatched by humans. In a battle between equal numbers of elves and humans, the elves are undoubtedly victorious. Once upon a time, a prince of an empire, enamored with the beauty of the elves, launched an attack on them upon ascending the throne. However, before they could even reach the elven kingdom, an elven saint unleashed the forbidden spell of Death Coil, slaying a 1,000,000-strong human army in the forest of monsters. Since then, the elves have become even more powerful, declaring that any race that captures elves is their enemy. Upon discovery, their entire nation will be annihilated. Because of this, powerful humans rarely possess elven female slaves. Those who do possess them keep them hidden. Of course, some elves, adventurous enough, have left the elven race to join the ranks of adventurers and mercenaries. These individuals often serve as archers, though their ranks are high and cannot be commanded by ordinary humans. Furthermore, some elves and humans have children, known as half-elves. These offspring are not recognized by the elven race, but they inherit some of the elven talents of archery and magic. Noble elves generally disdain to attack the weak, so the attackers are likely half-elves. Despite this, they are still extremely dangerous. What should we do? What should we do now? If we let that guy take the high ground, we're absolutely doomed. Keri's face was grimacing, a loss of face beyond measure. He'd been tricked by a little half-elf, and he hadn't even seen the other guy's face yet. Fuck, if you knew, just make some smoke bombs. Kino, furious, suddenly had an idea. He quickly pulled a shield from his storage ring, blocked the incoming arrows, and tossed another to Keri. Hurry, use your shield to block the arrows. Even magic arrows can't break through your shield in such a short time. I forgot about that, damn archer. If I run into him again, I'll make sure he gets away with it. The two retreated, their shield blocking all attacks. Even the half-elf archer's impressive skills meant they couldn't be harmed. Their retreat, coupled with their location on the plains, meant the half-elf didn't immediately reveal himself, as that would have immediately revealed him. After all, even in archery, one can determine the direction of the arrow by the direction of the feathers, especially Keri and Kano. One is already very powerful, and the other is a magician. Chapter 13, The Archer. The two retreated, eventually out of the archer's range. Kano then fell into deep thought, while Keri showed no sign of fleeing. "Keri, how do you think we should destroy him, Kano? We have to admit we're in trouble. This archer isn't as simple as we thought. So far, we haven't even seen a glimpse of him." "Are you saying this archer is a jungle ranger, Kano?" "You're wrong. Ranger is a title reserved for the elves. Elves disdain such a thing. This archer is probably a master among the humans, a master among mercenaries." Kano's face darkened. He hadn't expected his opponent to be so generous. He'd actually found such a formidable archer. How much gold would that cost? Archers are assassins, and high-level assassins at that. The more powerful the assassin, the higher the price. This archer was so elusive, it would probably take at least 1,000 or 2 gold coins to take him down. And even that might be a conservative estimate. Even 10,000 wouldn't be uncommon. The problem was, once they were targeted, it was impossible to shake them off easily. Archers were excellent scouts, their noses more sensitive than a dog's. Unless both Kano and Keri could fly, there was no way they could shake him off. "Damn archer. How can we deal with him? There's only one archer here. If we split up." "Kano, you're absolutely right. If we split up, he'll definitely go for you, and you'll be killed." Keri's face was filled with caution. He spoke the truth. With Kano's strength, luring the archer was highly unlikely. "Keri, we don't have much time. This place is perfect for trapping the archer. If he shows up, we might be able to surround and kill him. Otherwise, he'll wear him down sooner or later." "Kano, are you sure you can dodge his attacks? Don't forget I have a shield, and more than one." There was nothing he could do now, so he could only resort to passive defense. But with his shield, he wasn't worried about being killed. Besides, facing an archer, he didn't need those specialized shields. He only needed to find his target, and then he could keep his sights on them. Then, when the time came, he could fire his rifle. He doubted their range would be greater than his special sniper rifle. Seeing Kano's determined gaze, Keri sighed, patted Kano's shoulder, and quickly departed, shield in hand, as if fleeing. Keri now had to circle widely, keeping a close eye on everything around him, leaving the archer nowhere to hide. With only a few trees nearby, hiding places were limited. A rash attempt would likely result in instant destruction. After Keri's departure, Kano, shield in hand, inched closer to the target. Keri, a mid-level swordsman, had a tough skin and, with his shield, the chances of being shot were slim. Most importantly, Keri wasn't the target. The archer's attention was focused on him, and he was moving closer to draw his attention. Kano stared at the lush trees around him, unsure of the target. After all, they hadn't noticed the arrow when it came. It had to be said that the opposing archer was quite composed, so patient that he hadn't attacked even as he kept approaching. However, there was no doubt that if he had, his attack would have been fatal. Although the trees were equally dense, there were still traces of them. Kano observed carefully, hoping to find any clues. He was also unsure whether the archer was still there. If so, that would be easy to say. Otherwise, he might have appeared behind him. His hands, gripping the double-barreled revolver, were damp with sweat, and his nerves were completely tense. Such an opponent would be more formidable than a swordsman. Keri's figure had become visible in the distance, but he seemed more concerned for Kano's safety. Hefting his shield, he quickly approached a tree and brought it down with 2 or 3 blows. The tree fell without a sound. After a careful search, Keri moved on to another, aiming to knock down each one, forcing the archer to reveal himself. Kano was now extremely nervous. He took a deep breath and approached the tree again. Then, with a series of powerful blows, he hammered down the tree. After a careful inspection, he saw no sign of the archer. He then moved on to another tree, but he held back while Keri was hammering, fearing a surprise attack. Tree after tree fell, until only 2 remained. Kano and Keri were practically sweating profusely, whether from exhaustion or fear. Such prolonged exhaustion was not something the average person could endure. Kano suddenly had a feeling the archer had already slipped away. Shields in hand, the 2 men approached the 2 trees cautiously, watching each other's surroundings as they hammered down the trunks one after another. This time, they were extremely cautious, taking a full half hour. However, even after knocking down the trees, they still hadn't spotted the archer. "Damn it! We've been tricked," Keri raged, bringing his hammer down to the ground. Kano immediately looked around, but saw nothing amiss. A wiping motion brought a trace of cold sweat to his forehead. At that moment, the whirring sound of an arrow reached their ears. Their faces paled, and they quickly raised their shields. Then, with a dull thud, a sharp black arrow pierced through their shields, barely an inch away from Kano's eyes. The tip of the arrow was a sliver of black, and it exuded a fishy stench. It was obvious it was coated in poison. Swallowing his saliva, Kano immediately tried to duck and look, but Keri grabbed him and shouted, "Don't show your head. That's the archer. He can lock onto his target with his mind, and his arrows can pierce shields. He's 1,000 yards away, 1,000 yards, 1,000 yards." That number dismayed Kano, because that was the range of his blaster rifle. It was just that the enemy could aim at him from that distance, yet he couldn't see them. Suddenly, Kano met Keri's gaze with a look of disbelief, and Keri froze in shock. At a distance of 1,000 yards, locked with mental power, the sharp arrow pierced the dwarf's shield. What kind of strength was this? Even at the very least, this person was a high-level magic archer. His strength was comparable to that of a high-level swordsman and a high-level magician combined, coupled with his absolute talent. Killing a wizard was absolutely a piece of cake. Even a sudden attack could easily kill a swordsman, or even some less cautious mages. Such a master was definitely a top-tier assassin. To actually kill him, a useless young master, wasn't that a waste of resources? Who was this person, so generous? Where did they find such a master? Kano and Keri's shields were linked together. He was about to look through the gap when a sharp whoosh sounded again, shooting directly through the gap and deflecting both shields. Keri's strength was not false, so naturally the deflection was not much. However, Kano was careless and exposed most of his body. Swish, swish, swish. 3 arrows whistled in quick succession, and Kano's pupils constricted. He quickly drew a shield from his special ring and shielded himself. Despite this, 1 arrow still struck his calf. Thankfully, it only grazed the skin. "Ah!" Kano screamed, and he went still. He then looked at Keri, his eyes blinking rapidly. "Kano, I will avenge you," Keri reacted in a split second, charging forward recklessly, seemingly mad. Swish, another arrow came, barely missing Kano's head. His heart raced, but thankfully he didn't have a heart attack, or he would have been fine. After the strike, there was a brief pause before the archer shifted his target. It wasn't because he wasn't careful, but rather because there wasn't much information about Kano to begin with. He was just an ordinary man, and it was a blessing to receive these few arrows. Another point was that Keri was charging too fast. A mere 1,000 yards was a mere matter of seconds for Keri. The moment the arrows stopped striking, Kano immediately drew his heavy sniper rifle from his special ring and, relying on his senses, locked onto the archer about to strike. 1,000 yards was indeed a long distance, and without a scope, it was difficult to lock onto the target. But as a skilled firearmsman, he had a certain feel for it. A single flash of light was all it took for him to fire a counterattack. Indeed, he only had 1 shot. If he missed, it would be difficult to kill him again. Keri continued to sprint, his feet now exposed. Finally, a flash of light made Kano's mouth curl, and he pulled the trigger. Bang! A loud noise echoed across the plain, and the explosive round instantly pierced the air. Almost at the same time, the enemy's arrow struck Keri's leg, causing him to scream, but his speed did not slow. There was a loud bang and the explosive bomb exploded. Then Kano vaguely heard a scream, and he collected everything and rushed over almost desperately. But when he and Keri came to the place where the magic archer was hiding, the magic archer had long disappeared. There were only some shrapnel and blood. Haha, that unlucky guy mistook the explosive bomb for a sharp arrow and shot it, and ended up injuring himself. "Dear Keri, is your leg okay?" Seeing Keri's excitement, Kano couldn't help but worry. He knew that some of the sharp arrows were poisonous, and if Keri was poisoned, I'm afraid. "Don't worry, it didn't hurt my bones. Fortunately, the arrows were not highly toxic." Chapter 14, Ellie. What should we do next? Continue tracking him? Whatever his injuries, it'll take time to heal. But our goal is clearer. If he seeks revenge on us, he'll probably wipe us out next time. Kano always believed in wiping out the root of the problem. If he didn't strike while the enemy was injured, he might not have another chance. More importantly, the enemy knew his secret. If it got out, it would be extremely dangerous. Furthermore, this area was flat, making it difficult to hide. The bloodstains made finding him relatively easy. They were also in the driver's seat. The 2 men sprinted along the bloodstains, only to find they were gone. However, their footsteps were still there, proving their whereabouts. They rushed forward, but paused only moments later, as a female warrior appeared before them. Her delicate features, blonde hair, and curvaceous figure were visible. She wore leather armor, and her exposed thighs sent a simmering fire through Kenolite. Even Keri looked surprised. Of course, a single woman couldn't possibly do anything to them. The main thing was, the woman had an arrow lodged in her chest, piercing through her body. It was obvious the work of the archer. The girl was already unconscious, bleeding profusely. If she wasn't saved, she wouldn't survive much longer. Keri, save her first. I'll go after the archer, Kenolite said. Without giving Keri a chance to speak, he followed the footprints and pursued them. In a matter of moments, he was back where he'd been. To his dismay, the arrow was still lodged in the girl's body. Master Keri, don't tell me you're shy, Kenolite, I leave you here. Honestly, women have always been my weakness, Keri said, his face flushed. The way he covered his face as he fled amused Kenolite. Turning to look at the girl before him, Kenolite's lips curled into a faint smile. Then, reaching out with both hands, he removed the girl's soft armor. The girl's weak breathing didn't change at all, even when the arrow touched the wound. Fortunately, the leather armor was connected by magic beast tendons, otherwise it would be a real hassle to open it. But with the leather armor removed, the girl's large breasts made Kenolite's brain rush with blood. No matter how you look at it, they must be 30-60, which makes your blood boil. But Kenolite didn't take the next step. Instead, he took out a hammer and slowly smashed off the barb with a sharp arrow. This was a piece of cake for him. Then, with a calm expression, Kenolite suddenly pulled out the sharp arrow and took out some recovery potions and sprinkled them on the wound. The arrow wound looked horrible, but not fatal. It was probably that the magic archer was just trying to delay them so that they couldn't follow. After all, no one could remain indifferent in front of a beautiful busted girl, let alone watch her slowly die. To prevent the busted girl's wounds from worsening, the two men used their shields as stretchers to carry her. Kenolite used a magic potion, one that his adopted father had prepared for him. Such foresight touched Kenolite's heart. The girl's wounds were indeed not fatal, not even damaging any major veins or internal organs. The precision of the attack impressed Kenolite and Keri. Just 2 days later, the busted girl awoke. Her long eyelashes and lively eyes made Kenolite feel like he had encountered a legendary elf. Thank you for saving me, her weak voice made Kenolite uneasy. He coughed briefly and smiled, it's okay. I can't just see someone injured and not help. Besides, a busted girl like you is so rare. Kenolite's words made the beautiful girl blush, and her shy expression, in particular, stirred Kenolite's passion. However, Kenolite didn't do anything excessive. He wasn't the type to take advantage of someone in distress. Besides, his research on mechas was far more focused than his study of women. My name is Ellie, and I'm an adventurer. I've been to many places, the Sword God Empire, the Magic Empire, the Empire of Light, the Ice Empire, the Warcraft Forest, the Elves, the Orcs, the Dwarves. It's a shame I'm only at the Swordmaster level, or I could have gone to the Dragon Tribe. Ellie looked no more than 16 or 17, yet she'd traveled so many places. And her strength was at the Swordmaster level. Even becoming a beginner Swordmaster wasn't easy. She'd amassed countless life and death experiences to achieve her current prowess. This honor wasn't something you could grasp simply by listening to a few words. Oh my god, this is amazing. I never thought you were already a Swordmaster at such a young age, Keri said excitedly. Everyone loved geniuses, especially a beautiful young genius, who is incredibly rare. Oh, by the way, did you see that ugly orc archer? If I'm not mistaken, he was the one who ambushed you and seriously injured you. An orc archer, how did you see him? Keri asked in surprise, seeing Kenolite's sure expression, even he hadn't seen the archer. My heavy sniper rifle has a telescope that can see everything within 5,000 meters. I just saw an orc with a horse's head. It must be an orc centaur archer, but his weapon seems to be magical, especially those pointed ears. They're so clear, there's no doubt about that. Yes, the one who ambushed me was an orc centaur. I thought he was just passing by, but I didn't expect him to attack me. The arrow was so fast that I didn't react. Ellie was still in shock, and Keri was furious. To attack such a beautiful woman was simply unforgivable. Indeed, that archer's skill was at least that of a high-level assassin. A surprise attack is truly impossible to defend against. I was only caught off guard by him. If we'd fought head-on, I'd have been able to kill him instantly. Ellie's anger was not without reason. After all, she was a master swordsman, and being ambushed by a high-level assassin would have been humiliating. Master Keri, beside her, was filled with righteous indignation, vowing to capture the archer. Besides, the fact that he'd injured Ellie couldn't be let go. 2 days later, Ellie was noticeably better. Keno didn't hold back. For her safety, he'd provided her with a blaster rifle, a 4-shot one. Witnessing the blaster's power, Ellie was completely overjoyed. She practically sketched flowers and trees every day, chirping non-stop. It was only because she didn't have a lot of ammunition, otherwise she'd have become a crack shot long ago. Keri had no objection to Keno's apparent attempt to win her over. After all, Ellie was a genuine swordsman and a stunning beauty. Add to that her talent, and anyone who wouldn't be tempted would be a fool. Ordinary things held little appeal to Ellie, but this blaster was definitely not one of them. Something so new and powerful would make anyone want to thoroughly study it. Furthermore, with her discerning eyes, she could easily discern that the blaster wasn't much. The truly important explosive rounds were the real deal, the value of which couldn't be measured in gold coins. Keno, this blaster is a true secret. Aren't you afraid I'll reveal it? The gold I'll earn would probably last me a lifetime. Oh, really? I'm looking forward to it, but is that really the case? Keno's calm demeanor made Ellie realize that if she truly possessed such a weapon, she'd likely be hunted by other mercenaries or even the Empire. With such a powerful weapon, who wouldn't want to possess it? Ellie also didn't know that these explosive bombs had been tampered with by Keno. If they opened them, they would get nothing. Without explosive bombs, what good were all the explosive guns? Dear Miss Ellie, I'm sorry to tell you that I've dragged you into this trap. If you consider betraying our friendship, you'll probably end up losing your life as well. What you know about the explosive guns is just the tip of the iceberg of my inheritance. If you tell anyone about them, I'm afraid I'll be forced to ally with the Empire. I'm sure the Empire will make the wisest choice. Your threat touches me. Ellie's alluring smile made Keno swallow hard. He didn't know what was going on, but his resistance to beautiful women had been severely reduced recently. In 2015, there were no ugly women in that world, only greater beauty, only novelty. Almost everyone had developed a strong resistance to beautiful women. But the continent of gods and demons was a little different. Because of the abundant spiritual energy here, coupled with the practice of Daoki magic, the people here have exceptionally beautiful skin and figures. While the human race boasts a high rate of beautiful women, it can't compare to the elves and beastmen. While most beastmen are rather ugly, the foxes, swans, rabbits, and cats are renowned for their beauty. As for the elves, it goes without saying. Keno discovered that his temperament had changed since arriving in this other world. He wondered if it was influenced by the previous owner of this body. Due to his social status, the most beautiful woman he had ever seen was Lanya. However, Lanya was so self-righteous that Keno considered her a nobody. But Ailey was different. Her unique agility made Keno's mind wander. While he valued Ailey's strength, he valued her talent even more. However, he needed to remind Ailey of the do's and don'ts to prevent any unpleasant incidents from turning them into irreconcilable enemies. However, Keno forced Ailey into becoming one of his own, which deeply upset Ailey. She had thought she had taken advantage, but now realized she had been tricked. No matter who she was, she wouldn't be happy. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15, Fighting. The argument didn't last long, as they encountered 5 masked men. This time, there were no high-level swordsmen, all 5 were sword masters, one even a high-level one. Keno, you're so proud. You're just a mid-level swordsman, yet you've attracted 5 master sword masters, that's nothing to praise. I just killed a sword master and 3 high-level swordsmen a few days ago. Perhaps they feel ordinary sword masters are no longer effective against me, so they've summoned 5 sword masters. With a bitter smile, Keno produced 3 shields from his space ring, one for each of them. Then, with a bitter smile, he said to Ellie, there's a button on the shield handle. Press it before the opponent hits the shield. The recoil is 10 times greater than that of a blaster, so be careful. Ellie initially wanted to refuse, as warriors weren't suited to using shields, especially female warriors. Using a shield would be a real limitation for them, as they lack the physical strength of men. After hearing what Keno said, He naturally understood the meaning. He presumably knew the shield was also loaded with explosive grenades. If the enemy was caught off guard, they wouldn't be in good shape. Such a hot chick, she's really making me feel numb all over. I'll give her to you, don't try to snatch her away. A masked man's eyes were filled with greed, as if he wanted to devour Ellie. Kano sneered inwardly at this. Perhaps he was the only one in the world who knew the terrifying power of Ellie. Alright, be careful. If she doesn't run away at this moment, she's probably not an ordinary person. Don't follow in their footsteps in your first attack. Don't worry, boss, I can handle these guys alone. A siege would be a disgrace to me. Stop talking nonsense, everyone. Everyone else, come on. This will be troublesome, the leading senior swordsman said, charging forward without hesitation. The others, though somewhat reluctant, charged forward anyway. Kano and Keri quickly raised their revolvers, firing 2 bullets in an instant. At this point, they couldn't wait for the enemy to reach them. To increase the power of their shields, the 3 of them formed a triangle, Ellie in front, Kano and Keri behind, each standing about 2 feet apart to prevent a leaping slash from the other side. Kano's explosive revolver was indeed effective. The 2 explosive shells fired out, creating quite a noise. The charging individuals didn't even bother to dodge, instead unleashing their Dao Ki to block the attack. Bang, bang, after 2 shots, a swordsman paused, and the others' expressions changed as they sensed the explosive shell's depletion of 20% of their Dao Ki. However, they didn't care about that 20%, as long as they could reach Kano, they could kill all 3 with a single strike. Seeing the enemy approaching, Ellie fired her explosive revolver. As 4 explosive shells unleashed, the 5 of them paused in unison. Then, they unexpectedly leaped simultaneously, dodging the explosive shells and unleashing a leaping slash. Seeing 5 people leaping at her simultaneously, Ellie seized the opportunity, aiming her shield at the 5 in midair and pressing the button on the shield's handle. Boom! With a resounding explosion, Ellie's face paled. Even she hadn't anticipated the sheer force of the one-way bomb on her shield. She was instantly flung back, but the shield's specially designed spikes pelted the air. Naturally, the 5 swordsmen were caught in a tragedy. Fortunately, their powerful fighting spirit blocked the one-way bomb's attack. However, when they landed, their faces instantly turned drastically darker. Because they were now facing 2 shields, Kano and Keri pressed the button on the handle without a second thought. Stop them! The senior swordsman's face sank as he shouted. But the people around him had no choice but to unleash their fighting spirit to resist. There was no way to dodge. Boom, boom, the 2 shields exploded, instantly sending Kano and Keri flying. Fortunately, Kano warned Keri against blocking the strong recoil, otherwise, even with Keri's strength, he would have suffered greatly. The 5 swordsmen facing them were naturally in a state of extreme misery. The thorns on their shields pricked them like hedgehogs, and they trembled in pain. Kano had barely regained his footing when a sharp sword pierced through his shield, stabbing along his arm. The speed was so great that Kano's pupils constricted. He stepped back as fast as he could, simultaneously firing a pistol. He had only taken 2 steps back when a heavy sword smashed his shield, and then struck his revolver, severing it. Kano's eyes twitched wildly, finally realizing the power of a swordsman-level expert. To make matters worse, his attacker was a high-level swordsman. The senior swordsman missed Kano's strike and immediately launched a spinning slash. Although he also wanted to use a leap slash, which would have been more powerful, he was afraid Kano would draw another shield, which would have seriously injured him. From the previous barrage of attacks, only he and the 2 nearby swordsmen had escaped harm. Even so, they were all seriously injured. He simply wanted to kill Kano and return home to report. Even a second of delay would have been enough to lose his chance. Bang! There was a clang of metal as the dwarf's hammer struck the spinning slash. Though it only blocked the blow momentarily, it was enough for Kano. Kano summoned his mental power and drew another shield from his space ring. Fortunately, he had a few extra shields, otherwise he would have been unable to defeat these master swordsmen today. The senior swordsman's face changed drastically as he saw Kano draw another shield. At this moment, the 2 swordsmen behind him rushed forward, one attacking Keri, the other slashing at Kano with unwavering determination. Kano was furious, but he had no choice but to attack. With a loud boom, the severely wounded swordsman was blown to pieces. Ellie, who had been retreating for so long, had already reloaded. She raised her blaster and blasted at the other swordsman. Clearly, she understood that if she could kill one first, She would win. If she couldn't win against 3 against 1, it would be a disgrace. The shot was fired, and the severely wounded swordsman had no time to react. He didn't have much fighting spirit to begin with, and the blast immediately shattered him beyond recognition. Then, she drew the heavy sword from behind, gushing with fighting spirit, and charged forward. As a swordsman, she was an absolute force. Ellie's swordsmanship clearly astounded the senior swordsman. With his current strength, dealing with Keri and 2 swordsmen would be no problem, but with 1 more swordsman, that would be a problem. The difference between a swordsman and a swordsman lies in the qualitative difference in swordsmanship and strength. With fighting spirit, one's strength is 10 times greater than that of a swordsman. Keri, holding his iron hammer, swung the 9 extreme hammer continuously, while Ellie leaped forward and slashed, looking completely desperate. What infuriated him most at this moment was Kano, who had actually taken advantage of the opportunity to draw his shield again and then quickly retreat. 5 swordsmen had killed 3 men, and yet this was the result. The senior swordsman looked grim, and he glanced off into the distance, nodding slightly. That single nod gave Kano and the other 2 a sense of foreboding. They hadn't expected someone else nearby. Swish, with a piercing sound, a sharp arrow shot towards Kano. In a critical moment, Kano dodged as quickly as possible, but even then, the arrow struck his arm. Intense pain ripped through his body, but Kano paid no mind as the senior swordsman swept aside the 2 men and leaped directly at him. Although his shield was nearby, he couldn't attack. If he pressed the button, the powerful recoil from the shield's explosion would have pinned him to the ground. He wasn't made of steel, and the recoil was enough to kill him. Furthermore, if you were attacked by an archer while holding up his shield, the situation would be even worse. Watching the high-ranking swordsman leaping and slashing at air, Kano quickly unsheathed his 4-barreled blaster and fired at him. Swish, a sharp whistle rang out, and another arrow darted towards him. Kano resisted the urge to withdraw his blaster until his body, driven by the recoil, recoiled. The next moment, the arrow pierced his arm. The high-ranking swordsman, bearing 4 blaster rounds, let out a scream. Already drained of his fighting spirit, he was now at the end of his rope. Keri and Ellie, behind him, seized the opportunity and launched their simultaneous attacks, instantly striking the high-ranking swordsman. The high-ranking swordsman screamed and roared, ignoring the pain as he struck Kano, his target. At this moment, Kano skillfully blocked the attack with the top of his hammer. At the same time, he pressed the button on the hammer, and a 3-edged spike shot out from the thick hammer handle and penetrated the body of the senior swordsman. The senior swordsman had not expected this insidious move. At such a close distance, it was even harder to defend against. A sharp sword pierced the senior swordsman from behind, and it pierced through with ease. After these 2 attacks, even if the senior swordsman did not die, he would definitely not be able to fight. There was no movement now, and it was obvious that the archer had already escaped. After all, the situation on the scene was already determined. If the archer did not escape, he would be seeking death. However, the archer had just finished inspecting their weapons. If he was allowed to return alive, it would not be a good thing. Ellie, can you catch up with that guy? If we let him escape, we will most likely be hunted endlessly. Don't worry, leave it to me. I haven't lost much fighting spirit, it will be easy for me to kill him. After Ellie finished speaking, she quickly rushed to the place where the archer was hiding. She seemed to be full of confidence. Chapter 16, Periscope. In a matter of moments, Ellie had successfully returned. It seemed that even her injuries hadn't hindered her from dispatching the archer. He was just a high-level archer, he couldn't hurt me at all. It's a shame I'm so poor, I don't even have a single gold coin. Ellie, looking dejected, stuck out her tongue at Kano. This flick of her tongue gave Kano a sense of alertness, as he sensed something was off track. The 2 of them met in silence, their eyes locked. The momentary silence made Keri involuntarily glance at them. Actually, I think you 2 are quite a good match. You're about the same age, both geniuses, and you're together. You humans are such a pain in the ass. You like someone and you don't. You make it so complicated, it's a headache. Kano and Ellie turned their heads simultaneously, their faces flushed. While Kano possessed an exceptional IQ, he truly had neither the opportunity nor the time for a relationship. As for Ellie, her days were filled with nothing but adventures. And in all that time, she hadn't met anyone she found worthy. Almost all the men were the first to flee when faced with danger, completely unconcerned about the lives of others. Anyone who likes him is a loser. He's already 16, And he's only a beginner swordsman. Ellie's description of a beginner swordsman was theoretically correct, as swordsman ranks are determined by the number of martial arts learned. The more martial arts one learns, the higher their rank. And Kano, aside from being physically stronger, possessed no martial arts skills at all. Theoretically, he was only a beginner swordsman. Ellie, don't misunderstand him. You don't know that just a few months ago, this guy was barely able to walk. I can tell you, it won't be long before you're no match for him. Kano had no intention of defending himself, he never did. Time would solve everything, and he didn't need anyone's opinions. But he didn't say anything, while Keri unhesitatingly defended him, only he knew how much progress Kano had made. Keri's words immediately made Ellie look at Kano in surprise. In her heart, Kano was truly formidable. For example, those explosive guns were like nothing she had ever seen before. While these weapons have significant limitations, if mastered, they could be incredibly effective. She also had a feeling that Kano must have some secret. It was purely a woman's sixth sense, but she firmly believed it was correct. As for the specifics, she didn't know. So what if it's a misunderstanding? His current strength is there. Could it be that those who want to kill him have to wait until he's stronger? You don't know. Kano has many secret weapons. Once they're developed, those swordsmen will be no match. Keri spoke softly, but aside from his movements, he was careful not to mention his movements. Even an ordinary person could hear him, not just Kano. However, his words caught Ellie's attention. It seemed like Keri knew something special. A secret weapon, no matter how powerful, could it kill a great swordsman? Ellie asked tentatively, concealing her surprise. But such scheming seemed childish to Kano, a childishness that made him seem endearing. I don't know. You should ask Kano. Kano, can you kill a great swordsman? That'll take time. Kano's heart was calm, his face stoic. Recent close combat with swordsmen had made him realize that ordinary mech warriors were no match for them. Even his former high-level mech guards were only as powerful as high-level swordsmen. To easily kill a swordsman, he'd probably need at least a mech chariot and a mech fighter, or perhaps a multi-purpose mech warrior. However, with his current capabilities, building one wouldn't be easy. Furthermore, even if he could create one, it would be expensive. And if it encountered a magician, it would likely be destroyed. The defensive features of mechas on Earth wouldn't work in this world, especially those programs. Thinking about it now, they seemed to have little real effect. Even if his mech warriors were activated, their strength was at most equivalent to that of a high-level swordsman. A random swordsman would likely be cleaved in half. This reminded him once again of the formations he'd seen in the ruins. What was their special significance? Perhaps they were the core of mech transcendence. What's wrong? Is there some secret you don't want to tell me? Are you afraid I'll tell others, or that I'll laugh at you? Ellie scoffed, only to see Kano smile calmly. He then stared at Ellie intently, making her feel uneasy. After a moment, Ellie involuntarily took a half step back. Feeling her momentum wasn't sufficient, she snorted coldly and took another half step forward. I don't think being chased endlessly like this is a solution. Why don't we just kill them all? Kano suddenly spoke, startling Keri and Ellie. The idea was a good one, but the possibility of it being realized seemed unlikely. For another thing, how could they possibly inflict serious damage on the enemy? The enemy now had become a swordsman level 1. Kano's current equipment was simply not enough to kill them with one shot. Even the heavy sniper rifle was no exception, and this had been proven. Don't worry. Now that I know how powerful our adversary is, I'll definitely prepare even more powerful weapons. However, it doesn't seem wise to go through Shabak and Babylon to reach the Savage Plains, so I've decided to go through the Magic Empire. Yes, we've been traveling for quite some time, but we've only traveled a little over 300 miles from Cheyenne City. That's because we're in their sphere of influence, and they control almost everything about us. If we go through the Magic Empire, they won't dare act so recklessly. The Magic Empire's people will definitely not let them do that. And we're actually quite close to the Magic Empire now. Keri spoke with excitement. After all, he didn't want to live like this, being hunted. What they didn't know was that Kano had other motives for going through the Magic Empire. One was to study magic circles, and the other was to see if there was any chance of finding methods for practicing necromancy. Kano didn't hold much hope for the necromancer in the Savage Plains. It wasn't that he didn't believe Keri's words, but the necromancer was so arrogant. With the Savage Plains so close to the Magic Empire, there was a high possibility that he might be destroyed by a passing expert. But before that, we need to give them a warning, let them know we're not easy to deal with. Keno's eyes shone coldly as he spoke. He was constantly being ambushed, and so he decided to launch a surprise attack this time. Keno was thankful he'd been an orphan, lacking resources and having to learn everything. Otherwise, without the basics, he wouldn't even be able to manufacture explosive bombs. After a day of hard work, Keno found a commanding position and painstakingly crafted a simple night vision device. This device, barely half a meter in size, couldn't compare to a telescope-sized device. Its lock-on range was only 1,000 feet, and its accuracy wasn't very high. However, after customizing the heavy sniper rifle, he could control both the sound and muzzle discharge. If he chose to launch a surprise attack at night, it would be a surefire success. In the event of an emergency, Ellie and Keri would serve as his lifeline. If he couldn't kill the enemy, he'd be more than enough to protect himself. Ellie and Keri were completely stunned by Keno's new equipment. This magical item, capable of seeing objects within 1,000 feet at night, surprisingly didn't use any magical materials. Especially Keno's explanation, as long as there was body heat, the basic form of anything within 1,000 feet could be clearly seen. It was simply indescribable. They tested it at night, and sure enough, everything, flying in the sky or running on the ground, was visible. Even hair was clearly visible. Even the magical eagle vision technique didn't seem to have such a power. After all, it couldn't be used at night. This thing can be used by ordinary humans. Yes, anyone can make it if they master the crafting techniques. Oh my god, Ellie was momentarily at a loss. As a mercenary, she fully understood the implications. With this item, any enemy within 1,000 feet would be visible. Furthermore, controlling it didn't require fighting spirit or magic. Combined with the blaster, it meant that ordinary people could kill anything. Warcraft, magicians, and swordsmen, these were undoubtedly powerful. One or two armed with blaster rifles wouldn't do them any harm. But what if there were 100, 1,000, 10,000, or even 100,000? By then, even a swordsman would likely become commonplace. And for an empire, if 100,000 men could kill a saint, then any ruler would be willing to sacrifice 100,000 men. On the continent of gods and demons, a kingdom's standing army numbered over 1 million, while an empire's stood army numbered over 10 million. What would become of those 10 million equipped with blaster rifles? The thought frightened Ellie. If blaster rifles and night vision goggles became widespread, all naturally gifted races would lose their advantages. The world would descend into endless war, culminating in its destruction, something greedy humans could easily accomplish. No, it's too horrific. These two things combined are too terrifying, too horrific. Keno knew the horror Ellie was talking about, but she didn't know that on Earth, these were child's play. Mecha cities, mecha aircraft carriers, mecha battleships, destructive mecha warriors, everything in that world is not something this world can contend with. In the mecha era, even holy-level magicians and forbidden spells are nothing at all. Chapter 17, Terrorist Night Raid. In the stillness of the night, Keno and the other two, beneath a pile of straw, maneuvered their sniper rifles to observe their surroundings. Calling it a sniper rifle would be laughable on Earth, as its size, comparable to that of an anti-aircraft gun, perfectly demonstrated its crudeness. Perhaps its only advantage was its immense power. Naturally, Keno didn't need to use such a novel night vision device. Both Keri and Ellie scrambled to see it, nearly getting into a fight over it. Considering that satellite positioning could reveal objects as small as a fly, this night vision device was utterly useless. However, here, it was incomparable. Ellie had repeatedly stated that she would use it against Warcraft in the future. This was the undeniable tragedy of Warcraft. Dying without even seeing the enemy was a frustrating thought. Furthermore, for an assassin, this sniper rifle was absolutely lethal. Even if one could defend against it, the likelihood of defending against a continuous attack was slim. Keno, how did you know they'd follow? What if they were outflanking us from somewhere else? Then we'd have waited in vain, Keri asked doubtfully. He couldn't understand why Keno was so sure. After all, the world is so vast, and there's no specific route. A typical attacker wouldn't choose this endless plain. Ellie, standing nearby, remained silent, but her expression of doubt was evident. She clearly wanted to hear the reason. It's simple. I've left enough traces to prove we're coming here. It would be strange if they didn't notice, Keno sneered, then focused his gaze. In the distance, a flash of light passed by, like a blade reflecting moonlight. Ellie and Keri's reflexes were naturally comparable. A sweep of the X-ray machine revealed 7 or 8 figures. Wow, from such a distance, with so much obstructing the view, I can actually see so clearly. It's simply amazing. It's temperature sensing. Anything with temperature can be detected. The effect is quite impressive. Kano was filled with pride at his technology. He was the only one in the gods and demons continent who possessed technological prowess. Let me try it out. Ellie looked at Kano, her face full of anticipation. After all, such a high-tech weapon had never even crossed her mind before. Okay, use the crosshairs on the scope to aim at the target's vital points, then pull the trigger, and that's it. Kano had adjusted the recoil of the sniper rifle. After all, with its large size and the addition of a spring, there was virtually no recoil at all. Ellie, her face filled with excitement, aimed at the figure in front, but paused for a moment before pulling the trigger, aiming for the last one. Judging by the figure's movements, it was clearly an archer. Archers were far more sensitive than swordsmen. The moment the trigger was pulled, a bullet shot out, so fast it reached the archer in the blink of an eye. Bang! A loud explosion echoed in the distance. The archer had no chance of resistance. Struck by the special armor-piercing explosive round, a hole ripped through his body. Sniper rifle, sniper rifle. Kano had naturally taken into account the defensive capabilities of swordsmen and their soft armor. Simple explosive rounds in a sniper rifle wouldn't have much impact on a swordsman. Therefore, the sniper's bullets were specially formulated. Armor-piercing rounds were encased in explosive rounds. When the explosive rounds exploded, the armor-piercing rounds were ejected, increasing their power by an additional 3 points. According to Kano's initial assessment, a swordsman-level expert wouldn't be able to withstand such an attack. The sniper rifle's sheer size made it only suitable for ambushes. Suddenly, someone fell, and the crowd stopped to investigate. The archer's death was particularly striking, leaving everyone grimace. They've all stopped and are lying there. It's okay, keep shooting. I've surveyed the terrain. This is the high ground. Even if they were lying down, we can still hit them. Alright, watch me. Bang! As Ellie pulled the trigger, another person was hit by a bullet. Even though the opponent had released his Dao key to defend himself, the result was the same. Before the third bullet could be fired, everyone below immediately fled. Clearly, they were all terrified. They didn't even know where the enemy was. How could they attack? Too easy. Just like that, as Ellie finished speaking, Kano's face darkened. At the same time, a light blue Dao key passed by him, and Kano rolled on the ground at his extreme speed. With a wave of his hand, Kano sheathed the sniper rifle into his space ring. He looked at the sudden attacker and saw it was an elderly mercenary. Mage, what a shame your strength is too low. You're not even a magic apprentice, so you can only use a space ring. If I'm not mistaken, you must be Kenolite. I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Philip, a mercenary and a powerful, high-level swordsman. I have to say the weapons you just used were truly powerful, but why didn't I sense any magical energy? You are Lord Philip the Swift Sword. Kano felt like he was up against a master, while Ellie couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. However, Kano recognized the title of Swift Sword. If he hadn't sensed something was wrong and quickly retreated, he would have lost a piece of meat. Ellie's address startled Philip, and then he looked at him like a gentleman. His gentle demeanor didn't seem like he was about to kill. Quick swordsmanship is just a compliment. In truth, my swordsmanship is quite average. No. Quick sword Philip is renowned throughout the mercenary world. Your sword's speed and sharpness are undeniably the best among swordsmen. Little girl, there's no need to tell them my special qualities. They're unimportant to you. I'm sure you know why I'm here. Do you still need my help? I think so. Kano quickly produced a shield from his interspatial ring, his face etched with nervousness. He faced a renowned, high-ranking swordsman whose only advantage was his ability to sneak up on them. This chance only came once. If it were lost, it would never return, but the odds of success were truly slim. Philip's gaze towards Kano was filled with solemnity, which made Kano extremely depressed. His greatest fear was running into these serious individuals. The more cautious they were, the less damage they would sustain from a sneak attack. Sir Philip, may I challenge you? Kano, I hear a conspiracy in your tone. It seems my strength is too low to challenge you. I'm sorry, I'm just a hired assassin now. Challenging is a foolish thing. Philip pointed his sword at Kano, causing a gloomy look on Kano's face. However, He quickly pulled out his explosive revolver from his space ring and pointed it directly at Philip. Ellie and Keri showed no intention of fighting, as if they wanted to let the fight last. This made Philip feel something was wrong, so he didn't rush to attack. However, Keno showed no sign of delay. He raised his explosive revolver and pulled the trigger. As the 2 bullets were fired, Philip swung his sword, intending to split the 2 explosive bullets in half. The result was undeniable, just like the unfortunate archer. The first explosive bullet hit exploded. Caught off guard, he could only mobilize his fighting spirit to block it. However, after pulling the trigger, Keno didn't hesitate a moment, immediately pulling it again. The life-threatening sound made Philip's mouth twitch, his face filled with bitterness. Ellie and Keri, standing by, suppressed their laughter. They knew this would happen. Unaware of the explosive bomb's power, anyone's first move would be to attack it with their fighting spirit. Philip's sword was sharp, but that didn't mean he was also skilled in agility. Agility in martial arts was a rare skill. But Philip, a true master of the mercenary world, used his fighting spirit to dodge and block attacks, dashing swiftly to Keno's front. However, at that moment, Keno unleashed his ultimate move. Pressing the shield button, 5 holes instantly blew through the surface. The deafening noise startled even Philip. However, at such close range, he had no time to react. In an instant, he was struck by 5 small, one-way bombs. Even for a master swordsman, being caught off guard like that would be extremely painful. While not fatal, he would undoubtedly suffer numerous wounds, though none were fatal. He managed to save himself with his fighting spirit, but the sword was shattered into pieces. Before he could utter an angry word, Ellie and Keri charged at him simultaneously. Facing Philip in his prime, even Ellie and Keri combined were no match. The gap of 2 ranks was an unbridgeable chasm. Furthermore, Philip was a formidable master among advanced swordsmen. As long as he wasn't facing a great swordsman, he was practically invincible. Even with Keno's ambush, Philip's strength wasn't significantly diminished. Perhaps the only fatal blow was the shattering of his sword. Without his weapon, Philip was a toothless tiger. Relying solely on his fighting spirit, he withstood the attacks of Ellie and Keri, and with Keno's revolver, he also had to contend with. To Philip's utter despair, Keno unexpectedly produced another shield from his space ring, completely thwarting his plan to charge and finish him. He was confident he could withstand another blow, but with Ellie and Keri still around, he was likely dead. "Philip, why don't you follow us? We want to go to the Savage Plains and need a powerful partner." "That's right, you won't suffer any loss if you follow us. The things here are enough to open your eyes. Perhaps it won't be long before we become the most powerful people in the world." Chapter 18, Parting Ways. Without the longsword, do you think you're still a match for us? After his revolver ran out of bullets, Keno pulled out a quad-barreled blaster. The dark muzzles of the guns made Philip's face shift. Philip was now completely at a disadvantage. If he continued fighting, he would likely be killed by Ellie and Keri. After all, the strength of both sides was there, and there were those damned blasters. On the God and Demon continent, there were no laws. The law of the jungle was unquestionable. He wanted to kill Keno simply to collect his mercenary fee, and if he couldn't kill him, he naturally couldn't collect it. Even if he was killed, no one would avenge him. In this world, he had no friends. "Alright, I'll join you, but what's the benefit?" Philip looked helpless, drawing his Dao key into his body. Keno and the other 2 lowered their weapons. Keri joined Keno for the mechas. He had no idea how talented Keno really was. He was just taking a gamble. Ellie joined Keno because he saved her. The blaster opened her eyes to an unknown world. For an adventurer, the unknown is the greatest allure. "What benefits do you want?" "Unfettered freedom." "Very well, I'll grant you that." Keno raised the quad-barreled blaster and pulled the trigger without hesitation. With a bang, the unsuspecting Philip was instantly shattered. Not only Philip, but also Ellie and Keri were filled with shock. "What did you do? You're breaking your oath. You promised not to attack him, and you killed him. This makes you wonder if I'll do the same to you in the future." Keno sneered, approaching Philip and drawing a 3-foot-long sword from his waist, his face filled with a sneer. Seeing the 3-foot-long flexible sword, Keri and Ellie were also stunned. They hadn't expected Philip to possess such a powerful weapon. If they were attacked by surprise, even if Philip was injured, it would be more than enough to seriously injure one of them, as they had already let down their guard. Philip is an assassin. He's abandoned his original identity as an adventurer. He came here to kill me, that's clear, I don't want to kill him, but I sense the murderous intent in him never diminishes, especially when his hand rests just a few inches from the hilt of his sword. This man never intended to join us, he was simply looking for a chance to kill us. He's just looking for an opportunity, and so am I. He wants to kill me, and I want to kill him. Although I hope he joins, his actions leave me helpless. Keno's words left Ellie and Keri uncertain. While Keno's words seemed to make sense, Philip didn't actually take action. This meant Keno had violated his oath. On the great road of gods and demons, breaking an oath is an extremely despicable act. One will be abandoned by everyone and cursed for life. A person typically doesn't break an oath unless no one knows, or those who know are dead. But just now, Keno had broken his oath right in front of them. It was a difficult thing for them to accept, for they had entrusted their lives to someone who wasn't bound by their promises. It seems I was wrong. I thought our relationship was already strong, but now it seems it's still too fragile. A mere outsider could so easily tear us apart. Keno sighed. He knew people in this world took promises very seriously, but he hadn't expected them to take them so seriously. But the bottom line was, they didn't trust him. Breaking an oath is a despicable act in our eyes. Dwarves, I'm a mercenary. I entrust my life to my teammates. I only hate those who so easily trample on their oaths. Ellie and Keri suddenly spoke in the same tone. If Keno hadn't known their personalities, he would have thought they were in cahoots. Looking at the disappointment on their faces, Keno was at a loss for words. Suddenly, he realized how unrealistic friendship really was. In the past, he had no friends. He longed for friendship, but the world was too cruel, offering him only enemies. With Keri, he thought he'd found friendship. Even with Ellie, he tried his best to influence her. But now, he realized how ridiculous his actions were. I was wrong. Perhaps we weren't true friends, we were together for so-called profit, but you've certainly helped me a lot, Keri. What do you want? Keri was stunned by Keno's words. To him, they were an insult. But when he met Keno's eyes, Keri was speechless. I will keep our promise. Keri hesitated for a moment, then turned and left without hesitation. A rift had already formed between them, and continuing to stay together was probably not a good idea. Keri's reaction wasn't a loss. He already had the method for making gunpowder. While it wasn't much for Keno, it was uncharted territory for Keri, and it was enough for him to explore for a lifetime. What about you, Ellie? You don't want anything either? Turning to look at Ellie, he looked remarkably calm. Ellie, however, frowned, then asked, baffled. You knew? I know. When did you know I was the archer? There weren't any other footprints around you at the time. Besides, you're a mercenary roaming the continent. You've seen everything. With your strength, even the archer couldn't have injured you like that. Unless, you did it on purpose. Keno was calm, as if he understood everything. This surprised Ellie, who stared at him in disbelief. She had thought her actions were flawless, but she hadn't expected to be discovered from the start. This was a difficult situation for the usually confident Ellie to accept. Then why weren't you on guard against me all along the way? Because I thought we could be friends. Technically, we're not enemies. And I don't want to be an enemy of a beautiful archer like you. I wanted to slowly influence you over time, and then we could become inseparable friends. I felt like something was bound to happen between us, but now it seems I was a bit too sentimental. Keno's words startled Ellie, and she didn't react for a moment. But she was a seasoned warrior, and she quickly coughed, breaking the awkward silence. Are you serious? Give me whatever I want. Yes, I don't have any trust in others, but I will never go back on my word. Are you serious? You can ask for it, and see if I'll keep it. Keno's expression was serious, leaving Ellie puzzled. She naturally wondered if he was deliberately trying to be nice, trying to get her to stay, thus risking everything. But on second thought, it seemed unlikely. After all, her strength was superior to Keno's, and if she tried to attack now, Keno would definitely be no match. At this point, Keno was only 2 steps away from her. Sudden attack left him powerless to resist, that was beyond doubt. Aren't you afraid I'll suddenly attack you, subdue you, and make you my puppet? You won't. You trust me so much. I trust you. Keno's expression remained calm from beginning to end, showing no sign of a change in his mind. This infuriated Ellie, who suddenly realized that Keno was even more formidable than Philip. Okay, give me your so-called sniper rifle blueprints. That doesn't seem like a difficult task for you, does it? It's easy. Keno wasted no time, quickly pulling out paper and pen from his space ring. In just a few minutes, He had drawn the blueprints for the sniper rifle and its parts. Looking at the jumble of parts, Ellie was half convinced, half doubted. In the end, he took the blueprints and walked away without looking back. Without turning back or saying a word, Kano looked up at the slowly rising sun. Suddenly, with a wave of his hand, a large sniper rifle appeared before him. A figure appeared in the X-ray machine, Keri, slowly retreating. Keri, now carrying a hammer, looked dejected, seemingly deeply disappointed. Watching Keri's back, Kano frowned. To be honest, he didn't believe his own suspicions, but they kept resurfacing in his mind. One possessed the ability to make gunpowder, the other demanded the blueprints for a heavy sniper rifle. Separately, they had no advantage, but united, they would surely sweep across much of the world. But why didn't Keri ask for the blueprints? Would he not give them to him? Or was this just a misunderstanding? A crosshair pointed at Keri's head, Kano's finger on the trigger. A simple pull would kill Keri. Keri was no swordsman, his body couldn't withstand the sudden onslaught of armor-piercing rounds. He struggled internally, taking deep breaths. He devised countless excuses to prove Keri wasn't who he thought. But in the end, he found himself helpless. A voice deep within him told him Keri was lying. There was no need, and it seemed impossible. Keri didn't even need to lie to him, he could just kill him. Bang! Finally, Kano pulled the trigger. The armor-piercing bullet pierced Keri's head through the perspective mirror. In that instant, he saw Keri's head explode like a watermelon, with a bang, and his brains were scattered all over the ground. Chapter 19, The Magic Empire. After shooting Keri, Kano's heart wasn't as heavy as he'd imagined. The fact that Keri was killed so easily must have been because Keri wasn't on guard. Kano swung his gun and aimed at Ellie, only to find her empty-handed, bounding away from him. At that moment, he felt a strange sense of loss, as if he'd lost something important. He was puzzled by the fact that she hadn't found the blueprints on her. Kano took a step back and gazed up into the air. The sunlight was blinding, making him feel a little uncomfortable. But the next moment, he sheathed his gun and, without looking back, headed towards the Magic Empire. Just then, he'd discovered the blueprints. They had all been shredded, scattered across the ground. Ellie had the blueprints, so why did she shred them? Kano didn't believe she could remember everything in them. The only reason she had them was for another purpose, or perhaps she had guessed Kano's intentions, to kill Keri. This was Kano's guess, but it wasn't impossible. The safest course of action would have been for Ellie to seize Kano's heavy sniper rifle. Even if she couldn't take it with her, she should have destroyed it, as it could easily have killed her. Keri had been overconfident in Kano, believing he wouldn't attack him. Yet, Kano had shot him dead. The dwarf's stubbornness was the sole cause of their downfall. Having spent years as a mercenary, Ellie couldn't have been unaware of this. So why hadn't she been fully prepared? Kano was fast, almost his fastest. The Morn Kingdom was too dangerous for him now. Killing Philip would have been enough to make him a threat. If it had been a swordsman, he might have had a chance, but if a great swordsman had arrived, he would have been doomed. He didn't even stop to forge his weapon, just to be on the safe side. On the border leading to the Magic Empire, a vast city stood tall. Its densely packed mage towers resembled a starry sky, awe-inspiring to the unworldly bumpkin. The Magic Empire is the cradle of magicians, housing nearly half of the human magicians of the divine and demonic continent. Magic has been studied to near perfection here, making it a sacred place that any magician longs to visit. Of course, there is one exception, the necromancer. Any magician who discovers a necromancer will be slain immediately, and the magician's sensory abilities allow them to better detect their presence. Demon City, one of the Magic Empire's 5 major cities, exists to intimidate the Light Empire. Magicians are atheists, which is considered heresy by the Light Church. If the Magic Empire were not inherently powerful, it would have been destroyed countless times by the Light Empire. As one of the Magic Empire's 5 major cities and close to the Light Empire, Demon City's overall strength is unquestionable. There are over 20 or 30 mages stationed there, along with hundreds of mages and great swordsmen. The only thing it lacks is perhaps a top-tier saint-level warrior. If you intend to cause trouble here, it's best to prepare for your own death. Afterward, you'll likely lose even your body. Mages use magic, not fighting spirit. If attacked by them, your body will likely remain undiscovered. The Demon Spirit City's law enforcement team, also known as the Raging Flame Squad, consists entirely of fire-attributed mages. Their powerful attack power is so immense that, united, any individual below the saint rank would retreat. For Kenolite, Demon Spirit City is safe. There are rules prohibiting the use of force. Not only the four great families of Xianlan City, but even the Morin royal family wouldn't dare to act recklessly here. Given the Morin kingdom's strength, if it were to confront Demon Spirit City, the ultimate outcome would likely be its demise. The moment Kano entered Demon Spirit City, he felt a powerful mental force sweep over him. However, it was merely a brief detection, and no actual attack was in sight. Kano was shocked, unable to help but marvel at the power of Demon Spirit City. It had a gatehouse guarded by mages, and judging by the level of his spiritual power, he was at least a mage. Demon Spirit City didn't charge an entrance fee, as things were prohibitively expensive. Ordinary civilians couldn't find work or even a meal here. Nearby, numerous villages and towns served the city, offering a good alternative for ordinary people seeking a livelihood. Upon entering Demon Spirit City, Kano found the streets bustling with activity, though few people were present. However, those present were all lavishly dressed, either mages or warriors. The only other residents were nobles, though they kept a low profile, unable to provoke the mages and warriors. Strength reigned supreme in the divine demon continent, and this was also true here. While the magic empire boasted numerous mages, their numbers were limited. Most were apprentices and low-level mages, their offensive power comparable to that of swordsmen. However, here, magic item shops were everywhere. The dazzling array of magical items filled Kano's heart. Unfortunately, outside of the academy, all magicians kept their research findings secret and treasured them. The only ways to obtain them were through robbing or tomb raiding. Kano didn't enter any of the shops, as there was no need. He didn't have much gold, and his strength wasn't strong enough. If someone targeted him, his life would be in danger. He didn't believe anyone here was completely safe. In Demon City, there was a Teobeo market, the so-called street stalls, where a vast array of magic items and novelties were also sold, though most were fake. The Savage Plains was too far away, so Kano wanted to try his luck here. Perhaps, with luck, he might find some necromancer's treasure and successfully learn necromancy. Although the possibility was slim, he still wanted to try. Necromancer items were scarce and unavailable on the market. Sometimes, even if he appeared before a magician, ordinary magicians wouldn't recognize him. He had originally planned to find a random carriage, but after hailing one, the driver dismissively offered him 10 gold coins, forcing him to give up completely. He didn't have many gold coins, so he decided to save them. After all, he wouldn't have any financial resources for a while. However, the driver was kind enough to point out the street vendor area. It was in the South District, the most underdeveloped section of Demon Spirit City, and he'd see it right away. He slowly made his way to the South District, a place that was undoubtedly aristocratic in Xianlan City. Here, all the lighting was made of magic stone. Even the four great families wouldn't have such luxury in Xianlan City. Compared to the main city, this area seemed much more run-down, with many people bustling about, and the most common shops were blacksmiths and weapon shops. Crossing the crowded streets, he arrived at the street vendor area, where he saw a chaotic mess of items, many covered in dirt and rust. Come and see this broken goblet of fire. If repaired, it would be a magical artifact. Look at the magical patterns on it, they're impossible to replicate. The dwarven hammer, a sacred artifact of the dwarves. Although only the handle remains, it's still incredibly powerful. The spear of the god of war, a sacred artifact of the god of war. Now sealed, once unsealed, it will grant warriors immense power. An ancient magic hat, a valuable collectible. Now only 10,000 gold coins, don't miss it if you pass by. An armor from the great war of gods and demons, perfectly preserved. Only 5,000 gold coins, absolutely not to be missed. Admittedly, the items here were shoddy, but any one of them fetched thousands of gold coins. Compared to genuine magic items, they seemed like the real deal. At a glance, Kano realized that most of these items were junk from graveyards. While they had some value, they were now gone. Even the most powerful magic items would lose their effectiveness after a period of time, let alone thousands of years. Almost every magician knew these items were useless, only some apprentices still held a lingering interest, so the crowd was mostly filled with apprentices and low-level magicians. Warriors, of course, had even less need for these items. They couldn't sense the magical aura within them, so even taking them was useless. Kano slowly made his way from stall to stall. Perhaps because of his youth, the vendors, sensing an opportunity, constantly touted their wares to Kano, but Kano ignored them and slowly moved away. Suddenly, a shifty, elderly man blocked his path. He approached Kano, thrusting a black crystal ball against his abdomen, and whispered, "Master Magician, this is a new crystal ball I retrieved from a tomb. The magical vibrations within it are palpable to almost any magician, even without needing to use his mental power." Kano sensed the chilling implication. The crystal ball emanated an unholy aura. There are only two types of crystal balls a magician can use, the dark crystal ball and the undead crystal ball. And the undead crystal ball seems to be the only one that exudes a chilling aura. At that moment, Kano's heart nearly leaped out of his chest. His luck was so good, he'd actually come across a treasure related to the undead. However, undead crystal balls typically store soul power. For Kano, they weren't particularly valuable. However, since it was found in a tomb, it was likely there were other items. Normally, a magic wand, a magic notebook, and a crystal ball would be essential. Chapter 20, Thranduil. Is this the only crystal ball? Are there any other items in the tomb? Kano took the crystal ball and put it directly into his interspatial ring. He then handed over the magic crystal card and asked calmly. The card contained 1,000 gold coins, a number the old man was pleased with. However, upon hearing Kano's question, his expression paused, then he shook his head and said firmly, "Nothing. Aside from the crystal ball, there's nothing valuable in that tomb. Even the bones are incomplete, however, it's possible I haven't examined it thoroughly. Otherwise, come with me. We might find something else." The old man's words alarmed Kano. If anyone heard that, they'd probably go with him. Perhaps they could actually find something valuable. But Kano didn't believe the old man was so kind as to lead him to find something else of value. Wouldn't it be more valuable if he could sell it himself? It was possible the old man was simply trying to trick him out, to get him to a deserted place, and then kill him to silence him. Or perhaps the old man was sleeping with his crystal to deceive the ignorant magic apprentices. If that were the case, many would have been killed. "I'll take you there, but you have to give me something. I don't want much, just 10 gold coins. How about that?" 10 gold coins wasn't much, but it only confirmed Kano's suspicions. This guy was most likely trying to trick them out and then kill them. But refusing outright now would probably make him a target, so he needed an excuse to leave. "How about this? You wait for me outside the North City gate. I'll talk to my teacher, and then I'll meet you there. But we're talking, you only want 10 gold coins, and whatever goodies we find, I'll keep them." No problem, respected magician, don't worry. I'll meet you at the North City gate, but you'd better hurry." The old man glanced greedily at the space ring on Kano's finger. He was a connoisseur of value. That space ring alone was worth 5,000 gold coins. He simply refused to believe there wasn't anything valuable inside. This time, by killing a fat sheep, he could at least make tens of thousands of gold coins. Kano watched the old man leave, ultimately suppressing the thought of shooting him with his sniper rifle. It wasn't that he didn't want to eliminate the root of the problem, but rather that he suspected he might have more. Killing him rashly would mean losing everything else. For him, the loss was simply not worth a gain. Moreover, having just arrived, he didn't know the strength of the Raging Flame Squad. If they happened to catch him killing someone, he wouldn't even be able to escape. He found a hotel in the South District, but the price was 1 gold coin a day. This was equivalent to an average family's annual salary, and even Kano felt it was extravagant. He only had a few hundred gold coins on him, so if he needed to buy anything, he'd probably be left with nothing. If all else failed, he'd have to sell his magic core. After that, he probably could survive in Demon Spirit City for another year or two. In his room, Kano pulled out the crystal ball. Watching the ever-shifting gray air currents within, his body trembled with excitement. The airflow within the crystal ball of a dark magician is black, only the airflow within the crystal ball of an undead magician is gray. The same is true for magic power. Magical items require both mental and magical power, but at this point, Kano only had mental power. Regardless, he wanted to try, hoping he could learn something about the crystal ball. To his surprise, his mental power easily broke through the crystal ball. The next moment, he felt his mental power pause, and the previously inactive gray airflow suddenly began to spin rapidly. Kano tried to retract his mental power, but before he could react, his soul entered the crystal ball. Then, the crystal ball imprisoned his soul. If he forcibly withdrew, his soul would likely be damaged and he would become a fool. Don't be afraid, young man. This crystal ball contains only a glimpse of my image. Your presence here proves our connection, and you're the perfect recipient of my legacy. My name is Thranduil, a necromancer who has reached the saint level. Unfortunately, I was schemed against by the Holy See and ultimately severely injured. To ensure my legacy survives, I've stored it in 9 crystal balls. Once one is opened, the other 8 will acknowledge their master. In other words, only you can open the remaining 8, young man. Embrace your destiny and open all the crystal balls. Once you thoroughly study them, you will become the new holy undead mage. Without giving Kano a chance to speak, Thranduil spoke his words in one gulp. Then, all the gray air within the crystal balls, along with Kano's soul, poured into him, and the crystal balls shattered instantly. The legacy flooded Kano's mind, the torrent of information giving him a splitting headache. He clutched his head, screaming and writhing on the ground, veins bulging and convulsing. This went on for a full hour, yet it felt like 10,000 years to Kano. The torture rivaled the Lingchi, death by slicing, one of the 10 most brutal tortures of the Qin dynasty. Lying on the floor, Kano was covered in cold sweat, his face pale, devoid of any color. If he were to endure it again, he wondered if he could survive. Enduring such pain naturally brought significant benefits. His physique transformed, and his magician prowess reached that of a beginner. The lineage of a saint-level necromancer naturally differed from the training methods of ordinary necromancers. This Thranduil was the forerunner of the necromancer class. While other necromancers stored their death energy and soul power in crystal balls, releasing them when needed, he transformed his body into a crystal ball, storing both energy within his body. The death energy stored in his bones strengthened them, increasing his strength. As his strength increased, his power grew even stronger. Even without cultivating his physical body, by the time he reached the saint level, his strength alone could approach that of a saint-level warrior. Soul power is naturally stored in the head, constantly absorbing it to strengthen one's soul. Separating the soul fire will allow for greater control. The only problem is that separating the soul fire also decomposes the soul power, reducing one's own strength. If the soul fire is extinguished, that strength is completely destroyed. Soul fire is the primary magic of the necromancer, a must-have for all necromancers. Naturally, it's also an essential inheritance for Kano. However, Kano was somewhat frustrated by the fact that the crystal ball contained only one soul fire, no other necromancer magic. Beyond that, there was only a method for absorbing soul power and death key. Not even the simple knowledge of magic circles or the mage's meditation was available. What was going on? He should focus on thoroughly studying soul fire. Kano knew the soul fire's importance to necromancers, but it didn't seem necessary. Without even a meditation method, he was simply absorbing soul power and death key. This meant that Kano needed to constantly kill. If one avoids slaughter, one can only seek out battlefield ruins and locations with large numbers of dead bodies, there, constantly absorbing soul power and death energy to continuously increase their strength. However, due to the divine demon continent's hatred of necromancers, such locations are extremely rare, and even those that do exist are extremely dangerous. After every major war, the Holy Sea of Light dispatches its divine purifiers to purify the battlefield of souls and death energy, preventing necromancers from exploiting this opportunity to grow stronger. Long ago, necromancers also provoked wars for their own selfish desires, exploiting the soul power and death energy scattered across battlefields to rapidly grow in power. This is one of the reasons why necromancers are so widely discredited. Centuries of continuous purification have eliminated these opportunities for necromancers. While some dangerous locations harbor large amounts of death energy, they are too treacherous, and entering them is a matter of life and death. This is why the number of necromancers has steadily dwindled, to the point where only a few remain, and even wizard-level necromancers are rare. Kano, impatiently unpacking his assembled mech warrior, harnessed his soul power to condense a thumb-sized ball of soul fire. Watching the flickering gray flames, Kano's lips twitched as he suddenly realized something. Concerned, Kano placed the soul fire into the mech warrior's head, but the mech warrior showed no reaction at all. He could easily command a skeleton to do simple tasks by simply inserting the soul fire into it. This was essentially mind control. Once the soul power was separated, it became a separate entity. If the soul power weakened, the skeleton would fall dormant. Once the soul fire fully recovered, the skeleton would regenerate. However, the mech warrior was merely a steel puppet, not a skeleton warrior. Therefore, The soul fire alone could not control the mech. Kenolite now had to ponder the question, what was the problem? If the soul fire could control the skeleton, what was it controlling? Controlling the withered skeleton seemed impossible, since it was essentially just ashes. It seemed unrealistic that the soul fire could control the ashes, since once the bones were broken, the soul fire could no longer be controlled. And besides the ashes, what else was there on the skull? Upon closer inspection, it seemed like there was nothing, a fact that gave Kenolite a headache. Now everything was ready, except for the east wind, but he couldn't find it. Chapter 21, Undead Mecha. Skeletons, what else could they be besides ashes? Kenolite couldn't figure it out for a moment. It seemed he needed to create a skeleton soldier. Of course, he didn't need a real skeleton soldier, he only needed an animal corpse to find the answer to his question. He didn't have the courage to experiment in the city. If he was discovered, he wouldn't know how he died. Kenolite didn't leave immediately. He arrived at the street stall area early the next day. He wanted to see if the old man had taken anything else to trade. Just to be on the safe side, he had to observe for a few more days. He would wait until the old man gave up tracking him before leaving Demon Spirit City. Otherwise, being targeted by the old man would be no different from being targeted by the Crazy Flame Squad. Sure enough, the old man arrived at the street stall area early, looking around, as if he was looking for Kenolite, or looking for a suitable target. But until noon, the old man didn't make any move. The annoyance and unwillingness in his expression were obvious to everyone. He hadn't even brought out the bait yet, so it seemed he truly had nothing left. After all, the crystal ball's legacy was extraordinary, and it was very likely nothing else existed. If there truly was a sacred artifact, the crystal ball's legacy should have mentioned it. After all, for a magician, a sacred artifact's value was inestimable. Given the weight of the matter, Kenolite didn't give up easily. Instead, he observed from the sidelines for 5 days straight. The old man had been there almost every day, each day filled with anxiety. Kenolite was puzzled by what the old man was doing there. Could he be hoping to find him? That was simply impossible. Kenolite wouldn't be so foolish as to appear before the old man and peek through the crack in the door. If that were the case, he would have been discovered long ago. Whether it was a magician or a warrior, their sensory abilities were far superior to those of ordinary people on Earth. A clairvoyance device was naturally the best means of reconnaissance. Kenolite was even considering whether to use a satellite positioning system. While a bit cumbersome, it was certainly very effective. However, thinking about the complex system, he felt helpless and bitter. He was very familiar with the mecha, but he was truly powerless against the system. The matter of the old man came to a temporary end. One day, after confirming that the old man had appeared at the street vendors, Kenolite immediately left Demon City through the north gate. This time, he hid in a caravan's cargo and, upon reaching a nearby town, slipped away. Luckily, nothing unexpected happened. Upon arriving, he immediately opened a blacksmith shop. This wasn't Demon City, anyone could simply rent a house, find an iron furnace, and buy some iron ore. The total cost was less than 100 gold coins. This wasn't because of low prices, but rather because he had built a house on the edge of town. In this town, while everything else was expensive, labor was the only thing that was cheap. As for the place, there was no one to collect money. For safety, he built a basement beneath his house. However, the passage to the basement was long and lacked oxygen. Without a single sprint, even a magician or swordsman wouldn't last long without oxygen. Catching any random animal in the wild was easy. Rabbits were practically infested here, and no one caught them. Besides eating, they had no other value. During the day, Kenolite hammered iron with his 9-pole hammer, smearing himself black. At night, he retreated to the basement, researching how to attach soul fire to the mech warriors. After removing all the flesh and blood, leaving only the soul fire, the rabbit instantly came alive, leaping, running, and biting, appearing far more formidable than a living rabbit. Moreover, the rabbit could obey with a single command. The only drawback was that it could do very little, not even serving tea or water was possible. Looking at the skeleton rabbit, Kenolite was puzzled. What else could this rabbit possess besides soul fire and ashes? Death key, Kenolite's mind flashed, and he was instantly delighted. That was it. These skeletons, whether recently dead or buried, held a large amount of death key trapped within their bones. If the bones were shattered, soul fire would be useless. The purification of light that killed the skeletons actually purified the death key. Without the death key, the skeletons were reduced to bone dust. This meant that if he could imbue the mech warrior with Death Key, he could control it with soul fire. While this idea was a bit far-fetched, it was the closest thing. Imbuing steel with Death Key wasn't difficult. Simply enveloping the mech warrior in Death Key wouldn't take long. The result thrilled Kano. He easily imbued the mech warrior with Death Key. Then, with a single soul fire, the mech warrior actually began to move on its own. It could raise its shield, fire, dodge, and leap. While still far less agile than his previous mech warriors, Kano was delighted. After a night of exciting control, Kano felt like his dream life had begun. From today on, the mech warriors would shine. Most exciting of all, the undead mech warriors didn't need to worry about running out of Death Key. Because the Death Key was attached to the mech warriors and controlled by soul fire, there was no such thing as depletion. In this way, with just one command, the mecha warriors can move around without restrictions, which is theoretically much better than the previous mecha warriors. When a ray of sunlight rose in the early morning, Kano's face instantly became extremely ugly, because under this sunlight, all the dead energy was purified except for the soul fire. Kano's mind was confused, and for a moment he didn't know what to do. The sun's rays could purify all the dead energy, so any magician's magic couldn't easily kill his undead mecha. What's the point of taking such an undead mecha out? To be honest, he couldn't afford to lose this person. Although operating at night is a great advantage for the undead mecha, there are really too few things that can be done at night, and those who sneak attack him will not bargain with him. Since coming to this world, except for a purposeful sneak attack, all the battles he encountered were during the day, because people need to sleep at night. How wonderful it would be if there was something that could store death energy and prevent it from escaping, Kano thought, a sudden surge of uncontrollable excitement. Things that could store magic without losing it existed in this world, and he possessed some magic cores. Magic cores, where magical energy resides within magical beasts, are often embedded in staffs. They can store both magic and magical energy. Furthermore, the stored magic energy, if not consumed, remains for a long time. The amount that leaks out is minimal. If the magic cores were filled with death energy and then shattered and fused into the components of the mech warrior, wouldn't it mean the undead mech would no longer be afraid of magic or sunlight? This idea excited Kano immensely, and he eagerly took out his last magic core, charging it with his meager undead magic power, and then smashed it with his hammer. He picked up the fragments of the magic core, and each one was stained with death energy. While not much, it should be enough. The undead mech had too many parts for Kano to experiment with. So, this time, he crafted a simple mecha insect. It had no offensive power, and was only meant to survey its surroundings. After the soul fire had been applied, Kano's nerves grew intense. If this failed, he wouldn't be able to devise a better solution in a short period of time. This meant his undead mech could only operate at night and would be vulnerable. Whether it was death energy or magic cores, these were basic common sense on the gods and demons continent. Any magician could comprehend them, not that they were particularly intelligent. More profound matters involve magic circles and even more profound research. With Kano's abilities, he couldn't comprehend them. At best, he could only imitate. As the mecha insect rose, Kano prayed incessantly, addressing every deity in the heavens, even the ice and snow goddess, the goddess of light, the dwarf god, the orc god, and even the goblin sage. The mecha insect flew out of the smithy, fully exposed to the sunlight. Instead of falling immediately, it soared higher and higher, reaching a distance of 100 feet. The soul fire's control range is limited to the necromancer's mental power. Beyond this range, the soul fire loses its effect. With Kano's current mental power, 100 feet is the limit. Of course, this is only the control range. If he casts magic, the control range would likely be limited to a few dozen feet, or even a dozen. Time ticked by, and the mech insects continued to flutter their wings in the sunlight. Kano's heart raced with excitement, feeling that he had succeeded. After so much effort, he had finally created his first undead mech. Now he could see the undead mech army beckoning him again. For the next few days, Kano was completely consumed by the forging process. His previous mech warrior parts had to be reforged, and the magic cores incorporated into them. Although somewhat cumbersome, using the 9 extreme hammer during the forging process continuously increased his strength. For him, it was a complete benefit. As his strength increased, so did his forging skills. To compensate for the mech warrior's lack of flexibility, his mech warriors needed to be even more powerful. This problem is not a problem for Keno, because there are no alloys in this world. The reason why Keno has to go back to the furnace to forge it is because Keri used to use iron to make parts, but now he wants to use alloys. While increasing the strength, it can also reduce the weight of the mecha warrior. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means it was downloaded and re-uploaded without effort. We warmly invite you to visit our channel, Fanfic World. There you will find the original version of this story and many other novels of various genres. We look forward to seeing you dive into a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22, The Old Man's Secret. Furthermore, the mech warriors also required many meticulous measures, such as high and low temperature resistance. Otherwise, they would be vulnerable to ice and fire magic. He also needed to adjust the mech warriors' weaponry based on the recent battle with the swordsmen. Simple blaster rifles were no longer sufficient. He needed to equip the mech warriors with alloy weapons. Their terrifying power, combined with alloy weapons, would be a deadly blow against ordinary iron and bronze. While the weapons of the gods and demons continent were currently well developed, iron and bronze were still the most important. Even the work of the dwarven masters, known as black iron, was still far inferior to alloys. Another important point was the mech warrior's self-destruct system, which he had to ensure was fully implemented. He didn't want his research results to be replicated on a large scale by other empires. Currently, Keno understood the necromancer as soul fire. While it was fire, it had no lethality against living beings, rendering even ordinary humans powerless. To strengthen his own strength, while cultivating the 9 extreme hammer, he also had to rapidly create powerful mecha warriors. Mecha chariots and mecha fighters were currently powerless, so he could only strengthen the mecha warriors. Using alloys to build mecha warriors, if successful, their power should be comparable to that of a swordsman. While a swordsman might be unlikely to be killed in direct combat, a swordsman would certainly be a sure thing. The mecha warrior's defense remained its shield, of course. However, this shield was a mesh shield with spring spikes in the center. It could suddenly pop out during combat, inflicting significant damage. While this reduced the shield's defensive capabilities, it was true that the mecha warrior's shield wasn't very effective at blocking damage, as the shield itself was too powerful for a swordsman to easily destroy. This wasn't the world of the past, with its swarming missiles and bombs. Here, he faced swordsmen and mages, necessitating a certain level of equipment change. For his primary weapon, he considered both group and single-player attacks. After careful consideration, he decided to equip the mecha warrior's right hand with a heavy sniper rifle and armor-piercing ammunition. Furthermore, he also installed a shotgun externally. This way, the mechas could attack in unison, whether at range, close range, or in groups. After all, besides swordsmen and magicians, there were still many soldiers in this world. A real fight would be quite tedious. However, this string of requirements would keep Keno busy for a while. For another thing, the alloy itself was not easy to forge. Fortunately, the location he found was secluded enough to avoid detection. Also, due to his youth, no one came to him for weapon forging. 6 months passed in the blink of an eye, and Keno finally discovered a serious problem. The mechas had too many parts, and his magic cores had been completely depleted. Despite this, he could only build 3 mechas. However, Keno did manage to craft some other equipment, which increased his power somewhat. This was especially true for surveillance equipment and clairvoyance devices. These were his primary targets, and the smaller the better. Even so, the head was still the size of a wash basin. Suddenly, Keno noticed a familiar figure nearby. Despite the black robe, he could immediately identify it as the old man holding the crystal ball. What was the old man doing here, all alone? Seeing this scene, he felt a little puzzled. Could it be that the old man was really acting alone? But was he really that powerful? Keno didn't think much of it and quickly followed with his X-ray machine. With 3 mech warrior bodyguards and long-range detection, he didn't believe the old man could detect him. He wanted to see what the old man was up to. Judging by his equipment, it didn't look like he was doing anything serious. With Keno's long-range X-ray machine, the old man naturally couldn't detect him. Even if he could sense him, he couldn't see Keno's location, unless he was a mage, but the chances of that were too low. The old man didn't look around, almost never turning back. This made Keno wonder he had been discovered, but he looked around and saw no other figures. After walking for a while, the old man was stopped by 3 people. Before he could see clearly, Powerful magic and fighting spirits suddenly surged from the front. Almost without a word, the two sides engaged in a fight. What Kano hadn't expected, however, was that despite being 3 against 1, the outcome was remarkably predictable. 3 seemingly sturdy men were taken down in a matter of moments. This situation was completely unexpected for Kano. It seemed the old man in front of him was a master of magic, at least a wizard. After dispatching the 3, the old man didn't leave immediately. Instead, he slowly floated away, eventually hiding in the bushes, apparently trying to see if anyone was following him. This startled Kano, who thought they had spotted him. Just in case, he hid himself, then scanned the area with his X-ray machine, but saw no sign of anyone else. After waiting for half an hour, the old man finally emerged from the bushes and continued on his way, seemingly observing nothing amiss. Kano cautiously followed, but the distance between them increased significantly. Arriving at the scene of the battle, he discovered that it was filled with dark magic. Unexpectedly, the old man was actually a dark magician. What surprised him most were the 3 corpses lying on the ground. They were actually 3 knights of light. Although these were only ordinary knights of light, with the strength of only high-level swordsmen, the fact that he could kill them in such a short time proved that the old man was at least a mage. A dark-attributed mage was no ordinary opponent. However, in Kano's opinion, his attacks were not formidable. Despite his powerful group magic, he couldn't even defeat a swordsman in single combat. Looking at the 3 dead knights of light, Kano stripped their armor. He might need it in the future. As for the 3 corpses, Kano naturally would not give up. After consuming the scattered soul power and death energy, his mental power unexpectedly broke through to the intermediate level. After only consuming 3 knights of light, he went from a beginner mage to an intermediate mage. Such speed made him excited. He wondered if he should plan to kill those powerful mages and swordsmen, consuming their soul power to rapidly improve his own rank. No wonder Thranduil said that reaching the holy level was not difficult. But after Kano moved the 3 bodies, the old man suddenly sped up, changed direction, and sped away at top speed. Kano's face darkened, knowing the old man had tampered with the bodies. His previous contact with them had already detected him. But Kano remained unfazed, following him at a distance. The old man circled around and unexpectedly returned to the 3 bodies. Kano slapped his head, completely exposing his whereabouts. After all, he had taken the Knight of Light's armor. This time, the old man remained in place for a long time before continuing forward. Kano became even more cautious, following the old man until they reached a pool of water. To Kano's surprise, the old man jumped directly into the water, rendering Kano's tracking device useless. Running on the ground or flying in the air was no problem for Kano, but underwater or underground, tracking was impossible. Kano hesitated. The old man had clearly reached his destination. Should he join him, or not? Looking at the 3 mech warriors beside him, Kano hesitated for a moment. Ultimately, he decided to take the risk and go up. If he didn't, what was the point of following him? Of course, he wouldn't take the risk himself, but let the mech warriors go. Luckily, the pool wasn't large, and the 3 mech warriors formed a circle, all within attack range. Naturally, there was a mech warrior in front of Kano, providing him with cover should the old man attack directly. After only half an hour of waiting, a figure rushed up. It was none other than the old man, though he was now dressed in rags, as if under siege by monsters. Despite this, the old man's face was still brimming with excitement. He held a bone staff in his hand, waving his hands in a flurry of activity. But upon emerging and seeing Kano and the 3 mech warriors outside, his expression suddenly changed. Thinking of his earlier suspicions, the old man became even more furious, especially since Kano had tricked him with his crystal ball. This is the ancient tomb. It seems to contain quite a few valuables. Can you tell me what else is in there? It's only half an hour down there, and I think you should bring up a special ring. Kano was only an intermediate level magician, but his tone was calm, which made the old man somewhat unsure. The 3 puppets around Kano were particularly strange looking and exuded the aura of the undead. Metro warriors, as they are called in the god and demon continent, are magical puppets. They are typically enormous and used in large-scale warfare. Those who control them are called puppeteers, a type of magician, and are rarer and more valuable than magicians. Generally speaking, magical puppets are at least 5 meters tall and clad entirely in precious magical materials, making them ridiculously expensive. However, the 3 before him were not only about the same size as ordinary people, but also made of no special metals. Their aura is that of a junior swordsman. Are these magical puppets? The old man asked instead, sheathing his bone staff into a special ring, his expression darkening. Chapter 23, Battle Against the Magician. At this rate, none of us will get what we want. How about this, we ask and answer questions. Since I'm the one who brought it up, I'll ask it myself. Kano paused for a moment before speaking directly. He truly didn't want to waste time on the old man. After all, this was still within the boundaries of Demon Spirit City. Who knew if his recent killing of 3 Knights of Light had gone unnoticed? The old man nodded, seemingly a man of straightforward character. However, he wasn't polite, and without hesitation, he immediately asked the most important question. What are these? They're mecha warriors. Don't ask, it's my turn. What else is down there, except for the corpse of a damned monster? There's nothing else. I've already taken whatever it was guarding. The old man's explanation justified his tattered attire, and judging by his excitement upon emerging, it seemed to be true. If the monster were still alive, it would likely follow and kill the old man. Why are you following me? I'm at the blacksmith shop outside town. I spotted you walking by and saw you were an acquaintance, so I followed you to take a look. Is this where the crystal balls are kept? No. Hearing no, Kino was disappointed. The old man must be a master tomb robber, otherwise he wouldn't have found another magician's tomb in such a short time. What's a mech warrior? A mech warrior is a killing machine made of metal parts, but I modified them. As for more specifics, please forgive me, you asked 3 questions, but it feels like I didn't get anything. While you got what you wanted to know, it's not that I can't explain it clearly, it's that even if I did, you wouldn't understand. Simply put, these mech warriors are just moving metal frames. Oh, that's interesting. I want to test their power. The old man suddenly became interested. After a strange smile, he uttered an obscure spell, and a dark ball of light shot towards the mech warrior. For the past decade or so, Kano had devoted almost all his time to studying magic. With no clear target, he'd mastered every possible form of magic. This way, whenever he encountered an enemy, he'd know his enemy's strength and weaknesses, and at the very least, wouldn't suffer a serious loss. This black ball of light was the lowest level of dark magic, merely obscuring the enemy's vision. While quite useful, it was useless against a mech warrior. However, for his own safety, the old man quickly drew a black staff from his special ring and swung it, enveloping him in 3 black shields. These 5 dark magic shields gave him a sense of relief. But the next moment, 3 mech warriors fired powerful sniper shots, destroying 3 of the 5 shields. The remaining 2 still circulated, but the old man's face was utterly pale. He had no idea that Kano and the mech warrior's imaginary enemy was a master swordsman, a high-level one at that. A swordsman's full defense was far more formidable than his single magic shield. Even so, the swordsman couldn't withstand the armor-piercing rounds. While a hit to vital point wouldn't kill him, serious injury was inevitable. The old man wasn't injured, but he was certainly frightened. He felt as if he had one foot in a coffin. The enemy's attack style was completely new to him, and it was definitely more powerful than the archers. Archers were the nemesis of magicians, especially with 3 of them surrounding him. Moreover, his dark magic was completely ineffective. The magic puppets had no ranged attacks, but the mech warriors did. Moreover, as soon as a bullet was fired, another was already loaded. The next moment, the 3 mech warriors opened fire again, and 3 more bullets blasted away. Asshole! To Kano's astonishment, facing the attack of his mech warrior, the old man had actually dodged 2 bullets with a single roll. The only remaining dark magic shield on his body offered him no sense of security. Wait, tell your mech warriors to stop. We can work together. I know the locations of many ancient tombs. They're filled with famous magicians, are you sure? How can I trust you? Kino raised his hand, and the 3 mech warriors immediately stopped attacking. In fact, he didn't need to speak to control the mech warriors, just a mental command. He dared to stop because of his own strength. Although his magician strength was only intermediate, his warrior strength was advanced. In close combat, he could easily kill a magician. Even if he couldn't win, he could dodge quickly. And with the 3 mech warriors around him, it was no surprise that the old man died before him. My name is Tadeoza, a dark magician who has not been recognized by the Magicians Guild. I am not proficient in magic fighting, but I like to study lost civilizations. Tadeoza, what a good name. In fact, I really don't want you to lie to me. Because it will make me very sad. You can rob tombs if you want, but why talk about being so civilized? You are not proficient in magic fighting, and you think those monsters guarding the gate are all vegetarians. Kano's blunt reprimand made Tadeo's mouth twitch. Before he could react, an armor-piercing bullet broke his last dark magic shield. This made his face change, but he immediately threw the dark staff in his hand aside. Don't be impulsive, don't be impulsive. I'm sincere enough to cooperate. I can offer my space ring, which contains everything I've acquired over the years. I also know of several other tombs with valuable items. Actually, I'm very interested in your so-called mecha warriors. How about we make a deal? Tell me what these mecha warriors are, and I'll give you everything I have. Tudazia looked at Kino's mecha warriors as if they were treasures. His fascination made Kino's lips curl up with a hint of danger. If Tudazia wanted to cooperate, it wasn't impossible. Now that he was a magician, he needed a teacher to teach him about magic. Although he had studied it before, his knowledge was too superficial. It was nothing compared to the knowledge of a mage. Okay, that sounds like a good deal. To show your sincerity, I'll let you keep your underwear and give me everything. You're insulting me. Sorry, I'm not interested in men. And I'm not interested in corpses either. Remember, unmask all your stored rings and throw them over. Kano's tone was icy, no sign of negotiation. This left Tadeo helpless. Under the black muzzle of a gun, he was truly unable to react. You're insulting me, you misunderstood. I was trying to maintain your sincerity. Before I kept you, I needed to be sure of your sincerity. Were you going to kill me? Your wisdom shames me. Under the three black muzzles of a gun, Tadeo had no choice. Perhaps he wasn't sure he could withstand 3 attacks from Kano's mech warrior while killing him. Kano carefully examined the clothes and pants he threw over, but found nothing special. But the next thing he found intrigued him. A multicolored pendant, a dark staff, and 2 space rings. Dear Tadeo, tell me, the functions of this 5-colored pendant and the dark staff. Looking at the smiling face of Kino, Tadeo's face was full of unwillingness. Finally, he sighed and said bitterly, you have seen the function of the dark staff. In addition to providing magic power, it can release 5 dark shields. The defensive ability can withstand the full strength attack of a senior swordsman. As for the 5-colored pendant, it is used to conceal your strength. After wearing it, even the magician can't discover your strength except for the saint rank. In addition, it can also release a shield to withstand the full strength attack below the saint rank. The function of the 5-colored pendant made Kino suddenly excited. It was not necessary to conceal the strength, but to withstand the full strength attack below the saint rank. It was definitely a life-saving trump card. It can block a full strength attack from anyone below the saint level. You have this, so why should you be afraid of me? It can block any attack below the saint level, but only 1 hit. Even a swordsman's attack, after it's launched, can only block a few. And then, you have to wait a month before you can use it again. That makes it pretty useless. No wonder Tadeo didn't use it. This thing sounded powerful, but it can only block a single attack. That means it can only block 1 bullet, and then you have to wait a month before it can be used again. Although it's a bit useless, it's definitely enough to save your life. Kano didn't show any disdain and simply hung it around his neck. His action made Tadeo's face look sad. But there was nothing he could do now. He was a magician, not a swordsman. If he couldn't win, he wouldn't even be able to escape. Kano waved his hand and released everything from his 2 space rings. Upon seeing the contents, he was stunned. The space rings were indeed quite large, one 5 meters and the other 10 meters. The 5-meter ring was filled with magic cores, gold coins, and magic staffs, while the 10-meter ring was filled with trash from the ancient tomb. It's not entirely garbage, because there are many magic props and magic weapons in it. Although they can no longer be used, the magic circles and forging methods on them can still be used for comprehension. There are quite a few gold coins, as much as 50,000 or 60,000, but there are not many magic cores, only about 5 in total, and the quality is only level 4 to 6 magic cores of warcraft, equivalent to swordsman level. In addition, the magic props and magic weapons can still be used, but their power has been greatly reduced, and their research value definitely exceeds their use value. These staffs are finished products. Why don't you use them? With them, it won't be difficult for you to deal with me. These staffs are basically of wood, water, fire and earth attributes, which don't match my attributes. They can't be infused with dark magic, and they can't be used even if they are infused. Chapter 24, Contract. If I had access to these wands, I would have slain you long ago, Todoza muttered in frustration, knowing full well that his words were unrealistic. A wand can only hold one spell. For a frail magician, warriors and beasts are their greatest adversaries. Therefore, to ensure their own safety and to ensure they can unleash powerful spells, they store instantaneous spells of a defensive nature, like Todoza's Dark Wand, which holds a powerful 5-sided dark magic shield. Kenner picked up the Bone Wand, a wand used exclusively by necromancers. Anyone with a reasonable grasp of the term knew that bone wands were used only by necromancers. As he channeled his undead magic, a mist instantly enveloped him, completely obscuring not only his body but also his very presence. Kenner knew this spell, the simplest in necromancy, the fog spell, used to block an opponent's sight and mental detection. However, it seemed quite effective when used on himself. "You're a necromancer," Todoza pointed at Keno and shouted in disbelief. In everyone's perception, necromancers were supposed to be emaciated, shrouded in death, cloaked in black robes, and only stalk battlefields and death zones at night. Just looking at Keno, he didn't possess the aura of a necromancer at all. His ability to wield a bone staff made him unmistakably one. "We necromancers are certainly disliked, but you don't seem much better. A tomb robber would be hanged wherever he goes. Yes, we're the same. But do you agree to the cooperation just now? I want both rings and the staff magic core gold coin. I'll give you my 2 space rings, you can study these things yourself, and I'll give you your dark staff, too. As for cooperation, no problem, with 2 more means of survival." Keno naturally felt confident in his ability to deal with Todoza. His only unpleasantness was that Todoza had spotted one of his secret weapons while he was transferring them. He put the things Keno didn't want into the interspatial ring Keno had given him, then took out a yellowed piece of parchment and handed it to Keno, saying, "This is a peace contract. If we want to cooperate, we must swear blood on it. Once the contract takes effect, we must not betray each other, otherwise, our lives will be immediately taken. A peace contract, a contract from the god of contracts. How did you get such a thing?" Keno exclaimed in surprise, looking at the yellowed hide. It was called a contract from the god of contracts, but in reality, it was just a form of equal bondage. Legend has it that this was a contract made by the gods. If humans violated it, their souls would be taken. This was very popular in ancient times, but the crafting method has now been completely lost. Keno didn't believe it, because the contract only bound those with strength below the saint level. If anyone in the contract surpassed the saint level, the contract would lose its effect on that person. "This is the only one we found in the ancient tomb. I've shown enough sincerity, it's your turn," Todoza said, biting his finger and dripping a drop of blood onto the contract. He looked at Keno with anticipation in his eyes. Keno was stunned, then smiled calmly. He had to admit, Todoza was genuinely sincere. He seemed eager to cooperate with him, most likely referring to his Undead Mecha. After all, they had just met and didn't know each other well. It was impossible to say they'd hit it off immediately. At least, Keno didn't feel that way. Alternatively, Todoza might be genuinely afraid, terrified that Keno would not let him go. Keno also felt that he had sometimes gone too far, treating the entire god and demon continent as a game rather than a perfect life. Todoza stared at Keno, his expression growing increasingly nervous, his grip on the dark staff tightening. If Keno didn't sign the contract, the only possibility was that he would kill him. "You're still a wizard, what a coward." Keno scratched his finger with his fingernail, a drop of blood dripping out. Then, with a casual flick, it dripped onto the contract. The moment the blood touched the contract shone with a white light, then transformed into countless starbursts, vanishing without a trace. It felt like witnessing a magical phenomenon. It was at this moment that Keno felt a surge of something else in his soul. Something inexplicable made him feel a little uneasy. Todoza, who had been nervous, suddenly let out a cry of excitement, his face brimming with excitement. He ran around Keno 2 or 3 times, his eyes filled with excitement and madness. "Haha, you signed a contract. You actually signed a contract. From now on, we're best comrades. Killing me is like killing yourself. I'm getting impatient. Can you tell me what's going on with your mecha warriors?" Confirming his safety, Todoza immediately lost his guard. He stared at Keno's mecha warriors, naturally sensing the presence of the soul fire. Keno was amused by this sudden change. To ordinary people, mages were considered supreme beings. There weren't many of them in the entire god and demon continent. Now, This mage's behavior was seriously inconsistent with his abilities, which made Kano question Tudao's status as a mage. Are you a magician? Why do I feel that you don't look like one? Kano asked doubtfully, which made Tudao's stunned. Then he put on a condescending look and snorted coldly, nonsense, I am a magician, although I am only a junior magician, my strength is completely unquestionable, I am much better than senior magicians in studying magic, otherwise, how could I challenge monsters alone? How old are you? How can you not have much combat experience? Tudao's is 50 years old at least. For a junior magician at such an old age, it is not considered to be very talented. It is also understandable that he has sufficient combat experience. He goes to rob tombs every day, facing monsters and traps, and the fact that he is not dead already shows his strength. HMPH, don't look down on me. Although I am slow in cultivation, I have a thorough understanding of magic circles. Many magic circles will become more powerful after passing through my hands. You will know in the future that you have taken a great advantage by signing a contract with me. Let me talk about your mecha warriors first. I am very interested in them. Such a small magic puppet does not even use any magic materials. Moreover, it looks very powerful. This is simply a miracle, unimaginable perfection. It's not easy to understand. I will take you there and show you how I make it. In this way, you can't say that I am not nice enough. A moment later, back to Kano's blacksmith shop, under Tudao's gaze, Kano put on tattered linen clothes, took a hammer, and began to forge parts quickly. Tudao, do you think a magic circle can be embedded in ordinary iron? Impossible. Magic circles can only be used on magic metals. If you want to use magic metal to build these mechas, it's absolutely a fantasy. The entire Magic Empire's annual magic metal production is probably not enough to produce a few mecha warriors. Tudao's spoke with great confidence. His understanding of magic surpassed Kano's, and as for magic circles, that goes without saying. There's no doubt that placing a magic circle on a mecha warrior would make it even more powerful, but the cost would also be too high. Can you incorporate some magic metal, or add a magic core? Doesn't a formation require magic metal to connect it, and magic cores to provide energy? Yes, you're right. But there are many complications, such as coexistence, integration, and most importantly, restrained. Magic isn't as simple as you think. If you're not careful, it can easily explode. Such power, watching Kano, his body blackened in a moment, and frantically smashing the parts in his hands, Tudao's was speechless. What might be a magic explosion for a magician wasn't necessarily a problem for Kano. Dual magic and martial arts practitioners do exist, but their numbers are few and far between. Because they're multitasking, their talent is limited, making it difficult to reach high levels. At least to date, those who have simultaneously reached the saint level are extremely rare. In the entire history of the continent of gods and demons, there haven't been even 5. Especially since the Great War of Gods and Demons 10,000 years ago, there haven't been even a single such individuals. Due to shortage of celestial energy, there was even a period when no saints existed, nearly leading to genocide by other races. Kano, now 15 or 16, is an intermediate magician and a high-level swordsman. While this may sound impressive, it has absolutely nothing to do with genius. He didn't realize that Kano had only been practicing for a year or two, and reaching the levels of both was a significant achievement. Kano didn't bother explaining this. Sometimes, it's better to keep a few cards in reserve. Seeing Kano completely fill his magic core with undead energy and then smash it to pieces with his hammer, Tudao's felt a pang of pain. Those were all his magic cores. What surprised him most was how Kano had fused the magic core into the metals. His technique amazed Tudao's. Such a forging method existed in this world. Kano, why are you melting all that random metal into the molten iron? What could it possibly do? Why haven't I heard of it? By adding different amounts, you can create a new metal alloy. Alloys have many advantages, the most basic of which is their light weight, strong hardness, and high ductility. My mecha warrior parts are all made of alloys. They're lightweight and incredibly resistant to impact, and they're also very resistant to magical attacks like this. Kano continued to forge the parts, patiently explaining them to Tudao's. Although neither of them had made a good impression upon meeting, the contract was indeed significant. At least before reaching the saint level, they had a trust that surpassed that of ordinary people. Kano's frankness pleased Tudao's immensely. He wondered how he would feel if he knew Kano had casually killed Keri. Chapter 25, Magic Circle. With the experience gained from building mecha warriors, he naturally built more and more of them. After 5 months of frantic construction, Keno's mecha warriors had increased from 3 to 7, enough to form a mecha squad. Is there a way to infuse the mecha warriors with magic circles? That would make them even more powerful. Don't even think about it. It's impossible. I've been researching magic circles for a long time. It's not like no one has thought of your idea before, but it's just that none of them have succeeded in the end. Magic circles have been around for over 10,000 years, and magic metals are always scarce. Many have tried to infuse magic circles onto ordinary metals, but all have failed. Among them are magic apprentices, magicians, wizards, mages, and even holy wizards. Their results have all been impossible. Todoza's definitive answer made Keno's face turn pale. He recalled the magic circles he had seen in the ruins. He didn't believe those castle warships were entirely made of magic metal. But why were the magic circles engraved on them? Could it be just for aesthetics? There must be something he doesn't know, perhaps a very simple principle. It's just that they haven't broken through that window paper. From today on, you will teach me magic circles, starting with the simplest ones. If you need anything, I will assist you wholeheartedly. If you want to learn magic circles, that's not a simple matter. According to the rules of the magic world, you should find a master. Todoza, we are making a deal. You must know that you are not at a disadvantage. Oh, right, I forgot that you are a necromancer. You can't join the guild or the magic academy. Oh, what a miserable life. Todoza looked sentimental, but he found that the gaze given by Keno was extremely cold. He shuddered and said immediately, "Cooperation, of course we will cooperate. We have already signed a contract. Is there any other way to cooperate? How long will it take? If you are talented enough, you can learn it completely in a year. Okay, then we will learn as we go. Didn't you say you know a lot of ancient tombs? Maybe there are what we need there." Learning magic circles is indeed much more complex than magical knowledge. Even the simplest spirit-gathering circle took Keno 3 days to master. However, he was puzzled by the fact that no such magic circle existed on the battleships and fortresses he remembered. What's the principle behind a magic circle? A magic-driven formation. Then what's the basis of a magic circle? Magic cores, magical materials. How exactly? Inlay magic cores into magic metal, engrave a magic circle, and then use magic to power it. You're talking about magic weapons, right? Yes, that's the simplest, most practical, and most crucial. Keno pondered, taking out his alloy knife. He then used the magic cores to inlay a simple spirit-gathering formation, then immediately infused it with magic power. The result was a complete failure. It was as if the magic circle hadn't existed. It was impossible to do that. Magic and ordinary metals repel each other. To power a magic circle, you need magic metal. Having magic cores alone wouldn't work. Keno, still determined, continued to use his remaining magic cores to create a formation. However, he wasn't incorporating an ordinary formation, but a relic formation from his memory. The results were identical, completely ineffective. This made Keno wonder if he'd misremembered something. What kind of magic circle is this? It's so strange, I've never seen one before, Todoza exclaimed in amazement, gazing at Keno's circle. He'd thought he'd mastered many, yet Keno's random sketch had completely lost its appeal. Could it be that Keno had also obtained some ancient relic? Otherwise, why would he be so intent on learning magic circles? This is a magic circle I saw in an ancient ruin, but it looks incredibly strange. It requires neither a magic core nor magic metal. In short, I can't figure it out. Impossible, that's impossible. If that were true, the entire magical civilization would be overturned. Alright, let's not study this anymore. Leave the other magic circles to me. I'll try to make a breakthrough as quickly as possible. Todoza was confident, but he knew very few magic circles. Besides a spirit-gathering circle, he knew only shields, sharp circles, levitation circles, acceleration circles, solid circles, and rebound circles. After 6 months of learning all the magic circles, Keno's eyes were filled with horror and disbelief. Oh my god, Keno, you're a genius, you know that? You learned so many magic circles in 6 months. It took me over 5 years. Keno didn't want to admit this, because he had learned the theory first, so some magic circles were instantly understandable. Todoza, what is the principle behind magic? Keno suddenly had an idea, and this question surprised Todoza because the answer was so simple. Mental power and magic power, combined with incantations, create a magic circle, and then launch an attack. Then why doesn't a spell need to be recited when casting spells silently? Those who can cast magic silently are at least mages. They've mastered magic to perfection, and incantations merely aid their mental power in constructing the magic circle, so they can dispense with the incantations. Kaner's words gave Tudazia a hint of inspiration, but it was only a hint. He tried to grasp it, but couldn't. So, the core of the magic circle is mental power and magic power. If mental power is strong, magic power isn't even needed. It can be drawn directly from the surrounding air. For example, saint-level spells usually don't need to use their own magic power when casting low-level spells. Tudazia spoke quickly, his expression growing even more excited. He seemed to have discovered some extremely important secret. Although it was still unclear, he felt very close. Everything was proceeding smoothly under Kenner's reasoning. So, does that mean magic only requires mental energy? No, it also requires magic power and incantations. To be precise, magic primarily requires mental energy, followed by magic power and incantations. I think so, Tudeoza said, feeling uncertain. He suddenly realized they had stumbled into another misunderstanding. After all this circling, he finally found his way, but his previous inspiration had completely vanished. This infuriated him. What does a magic circle require? Mental energy, magic array patterns, magic power, and magical materials. Logically, magic and magic circles should be the same. To be precise, a magic circle is amplified magic. Why? A magic circle doesn't require incantations, it only requires an input of magic power to activate quickly, and its power is several times, even 10 times, that of magic, according to you. A magic scroll is the intermediate product between magic and magic circles. It's portable, powerful, and can be activated directly with only incantations and mental energy. At this point, the two men fell silent. By this deduction, they had grasped the key to magic, the formation. Whether it's magic, a magic scroll, or a magic circle, the core is the magic circle pattern. The rest of the mental power, magic power, and incantations are just the driving force. Kano, stop talking. Let me explain. Magic is driven by mental power, magic power, and incantations. Later, because large-scale magic took too long and was too dangerous to cast, magic scrolls were invented. Magic scrolls are difficult to create, but they only require the recitation of an incantation, a small amount of magic power, and a small amount of mental power to activate. Later, as people sought greater power, magic circles were created. They're faster and don't even require mental power. All they need is magic power. The essence of magic is mental power condensing into a magic circle, which then activates magic power to launch an attack. The core of a magic scroll is a beast hide, a magic circle, and a beast blood. Large-scale magic also requires a magic core. The core of a magic circle is the magic core, magic materials, and magic circle patterns. What does this mean? Tell me, what does this mean? Tudeoza stared at Kano, his eyes nearly bulging out, as if trembling with a desire to decipher the so-called secret. If we create a simple magic circle, we can equip the mecha and let it launch magical attacks. Kano spoke calmly, looking at Tudeoza. However, Tudeoza was stunned, his face suddenly darkening. Nonsense, it's the same as if you didn't say anything. Every magic circle has a huge range. If it were smaller, its power would be greatly reduced. Besides, magic and metal repel each other. Why do magic scrolls only require monster blood? Don't tell me monster hide plays a vital role. How can you be so stupid? Monster blood can also transmit magic, Tudeoza said, stunned for a moment. Kano, with a strange look on his face, then asked, what if I hollow out a magic circle inside the mecha warrior's body, and then pour in the blood of Warcraft, and then use the soul fire to provide mental power and the magic core to provide magic power? Then my mecha warrior will be able to cast magic. Tudeoza was completely stunned. With an expression of disbelief, he hesitated for a long time, and then spoke again in doubt. Metal and magic power are incompatible, and the blood of Warcraft will be consumed all at once. I can use magic metal to make an extremely thin magic circle, and continuously pour Warcraft blood into it. You should know that this is not a difficult task, a simple and clever magic weapon. Kaner's idea is indeed novel, and no one has tried it before, of course. Mental power is also the key. Even a magic circle requires a trace of mental power. This, except for magicians, no matter how powerful a warrior is, can't do it. End of this chapter. Thank you so much for reading until the end. Don't forget to give it a like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription or donation encourages us to continue. Thank you all. See you in the next video.